Thank you very much. I'm now calling the Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to order. The time is 7:02 p.m. Please note we're conducting a hybrid meeting which allows staff and members of the public to attend this meeting via virtual teleconference. The hybrid meeting will be video recorded and posted on the district's website. Because we're video conferencing, we will follow a strict protocol for the benefit of the recording. I will indicate when commissioners, staff, presenters, and the public will provide comments. If you've called into the meeting and are not using webcam, please state your name prior to providing your comment for the benefit of the recording. Please practice considerate video conferencing etiquette by muting your line when you're not speaking and limiting distracted behavior on camera. And we'll do the same thing in person as well. Now, Commissioner Sherlock is requesting to participate remotely due to a just cause. We will first conduct a roll call of commissioners present in person, and then we will address Commissioner Sherlock's request to participate remotely. And by the way, this is part of all the new rules for how to manage hybrid meetings. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
Okay. President Spreen.
Here.
Commissioner Basigi.
Here.
Commissioner McDonald. Here. Commissioner Tonka. Here. Commissioner Tyson.
Oh, here.
Okay. Commissioner Warren.
Here.
Okay, and we have 6 commissioners present.
Okay, and we're juggling microphones over on this side. I guess we either way. So it's like the old chairs. As stated, Commissioner Sherlock has requested to participate remotely for just cause as authorized under AB 2449, Government Code Section 54953, subsections F2A1. Specifically, she has requested to participate remotely due to a contagious illness that prevents her from attending in person. Let's see here. Remote participation for just cause is permitted because the board has met the requirements specified in AB 2449. Number 1, a quorum of commissioners is present in person. And 2, the meeting is properly set up for hybrid participation. Unlike a request to participate remotely for quote unquote emergency circumstances, a request to participate remotely for just cause, such as a contagious illness, does not require a board vote for approval. The only requirements are that Commissioner Sherlock give a general description of the relevant circumstances, which she has, and disclose if there are any individuals over the age of 18 present with her in person. Commissioner Sherlock, could you please confirm that there are no individuals over the age of 18 present with you in person?
I can confirm that.
Thank you very much. District Clerk Vargas, could you please update the roll call to reflect Commissioner Sherlock's participation?
Let's let the record show that Commissioner Sherlock is present remotely for the meeting.
Great, thank you.
And so I'm going to continue with the presenters, consultants, and staff roll call. Santa Clara County Fire Department Chief Kurtkow.
Good evening, present.
Santa Clara County Weed Abatement Manager Kumre is in the back room, so I will say here for him. Strategic Planning Consulting Scott is present in Community Education and Risk Reduction Manager Gluhan is also there. Emergency Services Manager Beebe.
Present.
Programs Planning and Grants Manager Woods. I see her.
Present.
Thank you. Technical Analyst Project Manager Cronin.
Present.
Operations Project Manager Russell. He's here. Budget Manager Morreale.
Present.
General Manager Logan.
Present.
And Deputy County Counsel Forbath.
Present.
Thank you. Presenters, consultants, and staff are accounted for.
Thank you, District Clerk Vargas. We'll now move on to item 2, the Commission President remarks. First, I'd like to announce that as a courtesy, any members of the public having objections to the proposed special assessment cost associated with the abatement of hazardous weed, brush, and/or rubbish growing on properties as listed in the attachment to Resolution 2307 under Agenda Item 7B are being given the opportunity to discuss the situation with Santa Clara County Weed Abatement Manager Mo Kumre in a separate breakout room behind the glass there before providing public testimony under Agenda Item 7A. So there's time now, if you're here for that, to take care of that before it actually comes up as an item. Are there any members of the public here in this room present who would like to speak privately to Mr. Kumre before providing comment during the public hearing? Just want to make sure that everyone knows. I think, yes.
I didn't wish to speak privately, and we have already.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. That's all I want to make sure of. Let's see. Another comment, a reminder that all questions, since we may have more of those tonight, any questions or comments from the public during any of the items, and everyone will get opportunity on every item, should be directed to me as the board president, and then I can determine how we'll handle those questions offline. So we won't be direct questions to staff or people on the remotely. So please direct those to me, and I'll steer those questions. Let's see. One other comment I'd like to make before we move on. I'd like to thank everyone, staff, members of the town, the public, who were involved with the LAHCO status meeting that happened earlier this week. I know we'll talk about it later, but I just want to call for everyone who called in to talk about their valuing this organization. I always want to appreciate everyone's input, and so much happens that involves us these days. I hope people don't lose their appetite for continuing to call and helping when that kind of thing happens. It will continue to happen, and we really appreciate how everyone speaks up about how much they value this organization. Everyone should feel good about that, both those who participated and those who heard it. So I just wanted to give my personal thanks to that, and the members and the town staff really helped with that as well. Finally, we'll move on to item 3, public comment. Persons wishing to address the commission on any subject not on the agenda may do so now. Please note, however, the commission is not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on items not on the agenda. Items may be referred to staff for appropriate actions, which may include placement on the next available agenda. District policy is to limit public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker unless the number of speakers requires me, the commission president, to impose shorter time limits. Do we have any public comments on items that are not on the agenda? Anything remotely?
Nothing online.
Great. In that case, hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, agenda amendments and changes. Let's see, are there any comments from staff or changes to the agenda? I believe we have one from County Council Forbeth.
Yes, thank you, Board President. We, in conjunction with staff, we're requesting to revise item 12C to clarify that the proposal to hire budget manager Morales as a finance manager has been modified, and we're proposing now to execute a new agreement for his position as finance manager as opposed to amending his existing agreement as budget manager to replace his title. And the reason for that change is just to make sure that we're consistent with the new hires that are moving forward. So the proposed revision to item 12C is approve position description and authorize execution of an at-will employment agreement between the district and Russell J. Morial for the position of a part-time finance manager effective July 18, 2023 with annual compensation of $109,200. That has been approved by County Council as to form and legality. So again, this is a change in form rather than substance. It's a new agreement rather than an amendment.
Great, thank you. And so we'll vote to accept or deny that change in a second. But before we do, would any commissioners like to make any other changes to the agenda, either order or form? Great, okay. Seeing now, I'll entertain a motion to amend item 12C as outlined by County Council. Will the commissioner making the motion and the commissioner seconding please state your names for the benefit of the recording?
Basiji first.
We have one on Basiji and
Second, Tonko.
great. Thank you. This item is open for discussion. Any discussion on the commission for that change? Seeing none, I didn't think there would be. Any public comment on that change? I didn't think there would be. Thank you. Let's go ahead and have a vote. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
And the motion passes 7-0.
Great. Thank you very much. We can move on now to item 5, the consent calendar itself. Are any comments from staff on the consent calendar items?
Yes, President Spreen, I just wanted to mention that on the financial statement package, that those represent the June financials, but that they are still in a draft format, pre-close and unaudited. So I wanted to make that very clear that those are initial numbers. And as we'll speak about later in the agenda this evening, will be going through an audit process and issue final statements around September or October of this year.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from staff on the consent items? Seeing none. Okay, great. I'll entertain a motion now. Actually, any questions from the commission on any of the consent items before we move forward? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Once again, with the commissioner making and seconding the motion, please state your name.
Tyson moves consent approval.
Warren seconds.
Thank you very much. So the item's open for discussion. Any discussion on it? Didn't think there would be. Any public comment on this? Great, hearing none, we will vote. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct a roll call.
Okay, President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
And the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move on to item 6, which is receiving a draft process flowchart for the weed abatement program. At the June meeting, we just requested that staff prepare a draft flowchart to outline the processes for both the Town of Los Altos Hills Defensible Space Program and the Santa Clara County Weed Abatement Program, which is obviously relevant to other things going on this evening. Technical analyst and project manager Cronin actually took him upon himself to sort of attack this problem of really making this explainable and understandable and get the details that people, so we'll have this when people have questions about it, and we'll now present a report on it. Please take it away.
President Spreen, Vice President Sherlock, Commissioners, thank you very much. Let's see, I'm going to try and share my screen here. Wait, there we go. This has been a very engaging project. I've had an opportunity to come at this from a couple of different perspectives. This picture is where I started. So this is a communications tower that was in Bonnie Doon. I say was. It was involved in the CZU Lightning Complex fire. And this is one of the last pictures it took as it looked down at the fire underneath the tower. I was at County Communications at that time in expanded dispatch, monitoring what was going on with this fire as well as the other complex on SCU. Looking at these cameras, this camera and others to see this. So this is the condition that has brought us to where we are. Let's see if I can get this to go. Oh, come on, there we go. Okay. So borrowing from Supervisor Samidian's article that was in the Outlook, which is a local rag in newspaper in Saratoga, he was quoting actually Assistant Fire Chief Brian Glass. The region continues to experience increased risk due to an accumulation of drought-stressed fuels and overgrowth. Wildland megafires are becoming more frequent and deadly, and that's why it's so imperative that we take action now and explore ways that we can make this community safe. So with that, we have this tool of WUI defensible space requirements. Whoops, too far. Hang on. There we go. All right, so how do we implement that? And we have put in, there is a process that happens where we address these issues and how to abate them. Initially, this was a flow chart, but a flow chart is kind of enter here and end up here. This is really more of a cycle because it continues every year. So we start with one program in the middle there, the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Defensible Space Program. We come in January because we just got to pick a point. We contract with County Fire to help assist with these defensible space inspections and enforcements. And it starts in January with a pre-letter that goes out to people that hadn't participated in the previous year by completing the self-inspection. It moves on then to the self-inspection packets are sent out in February. Those packets include an email address, a phone number, and a QR code where people can respond and give an update about their property. Hey, we are in compliance. It gives them details of what compliance means And so they can say, yes, my property is in compliance through these tools. The district, in turn, we have a number of programs that help people with this. This program of defensible space started in 2008, and the state fire marshal was ordered to come up with this program. And so delegating with CAL FIRE, they assess the state responsibility areas and put them into different fire hazard zones or classifications. They also make recommendations to areas that are not in state responsibility area, which would include Los Altos Hills, for what that defensible space should look like. Now, our program follows that directly. And so there's some very defined responses for what makes defensible space there. This is all codified in Title 14, and then here in the town, it's codified within the municipal code, which is in itself law. And then the district itself, I went too far. I'm sorry, I'll have to. One second. There we go. So the district itself, we have tools that we help people meet this requirement. So we have our brush chipping program that we're all very familiar with, and that goes on year round to remove those weeds. The weed abatement program, this is in concert with county's weed abatement program, where property inspections can be requested from county fire, and they will send a deputy fire marshal out and give some one-on-one advice on how to make your house safer. Defensible space vegetation removal drop-off, that is in cooperation with Green Waste, which is the green waste hauler for Los Altos Hills. So they have a once a month collection of green waste and haul that off. And then home ignition zone assessment program. That is an NFPA program where inspectors are trained in how to do a home inspection. Our partnership with Fire Safe Council, they have a number of people trained with that. I believe Captain Gluen recently received that training as well. So there are a number of ways of requesting this home ignition zone inspection from the district, and we'll come out and help with that. So that brings us up to, oops. Those are the tools that we implemented. So now we move forward. Starting in April, when people hopefully have caught up and are pretty close. This year was a bit of an exception with the rains. Santa Clara County fire engine companies go out and inspect properties with structures. Now that's key. The three captains here in the room, former captains, we all did those inspections here in the hills. And so it's for properties that have a structure on them. I go back there, sorry, that was too far. Give me a second here. I'm managing two computers so I can present content and as well. Okay. The engine companies go out and do an inspection. If they're able to contact the homeowner, let's say they find a property that's non-compliant, they contact the owner, that was fine. They'll tell them how to do that, and they can give them information about defensible space. If not, they leave a door hanger that's illustrated there. They schedule a re-inspection. They come back in 15 days, so they get a second inspection at that time. If it's not in compliance at that point, County Fire turns it over to their prevention division. The prevention division will attempt to make a contact and have a deputy fire marshal come out and talk with the homeowner about what defensible space is and how to be in compliance, and share again all those tools that we can help them with. If that fails, then they are put on a list that will eventually go to county weed abatement. Okay. At the May commissioners meeting, that list that's been compiled primarily from County Fire is presented as, these are those properties that are not in compliance. There is, by resolution, they are then deemed a hazard. A hearing is then set for the following month, June, where the decision can be made to have the abatement performed. And homeowners have the opportunity to come at that time and contest that or tell what they've done. So this is the next opportunity to participate and catch up. Come June, if they still have not been in compliance, there is a high likelihood that they will get an inspection after they're on the list, because they will get a notice, and that they will have 15 days to comply with that notice. Come June, come June, the commissioners, again by resolution after a hearing, will put those properties that are on the list, and by resolution order county weed abatement to perform the abatements. County weed abatement has a contract with a contractor that will perform that, and they will begin, traditionally they're able to get that done through the fall. All right, so this introduces our friends at county, and this is the county weed abatement program. They are under they're under the Consumer and Environmental Protection Agency of the county. They provide county-wide inspections, so not just within the hills, but everywhere within the county. It's a economy of scale. So all fire districts will share their list to them, and they do the abatement for all of the agencies that have the ability to say, hey, we need this abated. They do the abatement, and they also handle the lien services. Parcels that remain in the abatement, parcels will remain in the abatement program until they are self-compliant and off that nuisance list for 3 years. So once you're on the list, you will be on there for 3 years once you meet compliance and are no longer on the list that they receive. Okay. There is an administrative fee for that of, I think it was $97, maybe 93. It's in the 90s. The abatement charges for the work, the actual contractor work, will become a fee that will then, with the administrative fees, be placed on the tax roll. It's important to also know that the county now has the authority for non-developed properties, so properties without structures. If a property is 1 acre or less, then it should be cleared of all hazardous weeds down to a maximum, I think it was 6 inches. It can get up to 18 in areas that we're worried about erosion and things like that. If it's over an acre, abatement looks like a 30-foot fire break around the perimeter of the property, and then possibly another dividing line through the property. So abatement may not look like an empty field, which is important. I think there's a fair amount of alarm when people see a field and go, it's got a lot of grass in there. Well, yes, but using fire science, we know that a 30-foot fire break works for 4-foot high grass. Yes, maybe the fire can jump, but it's slowed down enough that the fire department can respond and catch those spot fires, and it eliminates the fire threat. Well, it reduces it to an acceptable level of a fire threat. It also doesn't improperly burden the property owner with a tax bill to clear an entire 10-acre lot, let's say. Speaking of larger lots, if it's over 5 acres, then it will be divided up into 5-acre chunks with a 30-foot fuel break around it and possibly another swath down the middle of 30 feet. So parcels are added to the abatement program. A county inspector now goes out and looks at the property. That's the 4th time someone's looked at it. If they're not in compliance, they're given a 15-day notice and they come out again. So they get the 5 times someone's looked at this property. How do they get referrals from other agencies like the fire department and public works. And in addition, Well, and their inspectors, keep in mind, there are only 3 inspectors for the county. There's a lot of properties out there. So they do not have a list of all the properties and just go see every single one. They have to be alerted to a property. County Fire does have a list of all the properties in Los Altos Hills, and those are the ones that are on the inspection list to take a look, not the list that's on the abatement list. Citizens can report properties. There's a phone number to call. There's an email address you can send to, and you can go to their website and file a complaint as well. And that will get one of their inspectors to come out and look at that property. All right, so where are we? So now we come into July, and this is where we are now. So far, we've only gone through half the year, but we'll talk a little bit more. So we've had, we've sent some pre-information. We've got all these great tools. We go out and we have engine companies do inspections. They do re-inspections. The DFM comes out. County weed abatement comes out. County weed abatement comes out again. They get on the list. They get to, citizens may appeal that. And at this point, the abatement is going to occur. And this is where the cost for that abatement, which would actually be the abatement that has already occurred, most likely from the previous year, is now going to be put on their tax roll. And that's what we're going to vote on today. Okay. Once we're into this abatement period, vegetation can't grow above 6 inches or the 18 inches if it's a erosion concern. So we need to stay within compliance. So it is possible that abatement would have to happen more than once, and it's possible that someone could also get reported after abatement. They can be reported anytime, as I mentioned, all those tools. We do this again in November. There is another list. This one primarily comes from the county, and these are the properties that are on this list. Do they constitute a hazard? And by resolution, the board says yes, they make a hazard. And so again, there is a scheduled hearing where people can come and talk about what they're going to do about that. And then if by resolution after that hearing, they are placed on the abatement list, and county is ordered to abate the weeds and the other hazards. They do deal with other fire hazards as well. Maybe it's accumulation of cars that could ignite or other hazardous materials that could burn. It's kind of beyond the privy of the fire district, or not so much fire department, but our friends at county are the ones that can help with those as well. All right, so where does that leave us? Here's our picture of our complete cycle. We have this reason why we have it. It's law from 2008. The state participates in describing this. We really have 2 programs now in the middle, the defensible space as well as the weed abatement. One is for properties that have a structure, and there are requirements of that: 30 feet from the house, 30 feet from any structure, clear brush away from chimneys by 10 feet, keep your brush away from your propane tank by 10 feet, keep combustibles away from the house, like wood piles and things. Which one?
Address warrant.
Put your address in 4-inch letters. Now, there are a number of suggestions as well, and there's actually another change coming in law in the future. Right now, it applies to extreme risk zones, which we do not have, but it will be coming soon, where the first 5 feet have to be non-combustible completely. So here is the cycle. Twice a year, the commissioners approve the list and say, yes, these represent a hazard. Twice a year, we have a hearing and order county to do the abatement, and then the other tools come in to assist, and today is the resolution to put it on the tax roll. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead.
Question. The self-inspection package, who receives those in the February, March timeframe?
County Fire sends those self-inspection packets to the residents on their inspection list.
Okay, so not all homeowners receive those. Just the people on the list.
Not on the abatement list, I'm sorry. They have an inspection list. It's about a third of the people with a third of the third of the developed properties in the district receive that packet.
Those are the ones that are going to be inspected that year?
They can complete their self-inspection and they may receive an inspection. The actual inspection could be less. All residents should receive the packet. The engine companies only have so much bandwidth. And so traditionally they do 1/3 each year.
Okay. Second question is, why do we inspect starting in April when we're not allowed to plow in the hills until April 1st? Because per town ordinance, we can't start plowing until that point. So you're going to be inspecting while we've still got weeds growing.
That could be correct. I imagine, well, now I'm taking a conjecture because from having done those inspections from April to June, 2 months with that list of properties, that's a lot of people to go out and see. And so it's kind of a sharing of information. Many of them are in compliance. Those that aren't, we'll come back in 15 days and have a conversation. And if as an engine company captain, I've got my contractor coming next Tuesday, great. I'm on duty next Thursday. How about I come then? So it may go beyond 15 days, but there's a lot of dialogue that goes on during that time.
Okay.
And there are, like I said, there are other inspections that will come down the line.
Thank you.
President Spreen, we have a comment from Chief Kirkhout, if you want to allow it.
Please take that.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to emphasize or confirm what Ryan just said. It's basically based on the timeline. It's really hard. And we know that it's raining, and especially if, like, for this last season, this last winter season, in which we still had rain well into March and April, we understand that. There's some wiggle room in terms of how we can push out the inspection load, or self-inspection, or the weed abatement load for the inspections that the company officer does. But it's because for county fire, we have more than just Los Altos Hills that we have to inspect. It's all up and down through our district. So it's really more program and project management for us on the 132 square miles that county fire is responsible for. And it is unfortunately based on the timeline that we work through to get it to weed abatement.
Great, thank you. Any other commission questions? I see.
Yeah,
CG.
I have a question in regards to the list that you mentioned. Is that list the list of the people who have not complied in the prior year, the list that gets the self-inspection letter first that you mentioned earlier? Is that list comprised of people who have not complied in the past year or have remained on that list for 3 years or whatever? Or do they also include some new residents?
Okay, it's my understanding there's actually quite a few lists. So the January list comes from County Fire, and it's my understanding those are the people that did not reply to the February mailing with either hitting the QR code, sending in the email, the reply for that February mailing. That's who receives the January, is my understanding. I didn't dive into that one too deeply, but I can look into that more if you like.
I
It
think
comes from
Mo.
County Fire.
Oh, here's
would
your,
you
get your answer here from Mo.
I defer to the expert.
Weed abatement has a list that we provide to the district, usually in November, December timeframe. That is a list of properties. Each property has been non-compliant at least once in the last 3 years.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the ones that weed abatement is already handling. We're processing through you. You'll have a commencement hearing in January where we can proceed after April 30th. The weed abatement doesn't begin inspections until April 30th. That's the deadline that's set for this district.
I have a question regarding, sorry for taking so long, about the November list that you send out. How is that list comprised? How does it composed, that list in November? Just for clarity.
It's my understanding the November list comes from county.
The weed abatement list is, so every property that we've inspected this year either complied or did not. Those that have complied and have been 3 years compliant will come off the list. Those that have not had 3 years of voluntary compliance will remain on the list. There will also be other properties that we found either reported to us, or as we're looking at property A, we see property B that's also non-compliant. We send them a letter informing them they'll be added, and then we put them on that list. We don't charge them anything. They're not affected until after a public hearing process. So they can come here in January and say, I shouldn't be on this list. Here's why. You'll make that decision. And if they remain on the list, then we'll proceed with inspecting and possibly performing abatement if necessary on those properties.
How many lists are there in all, in total?
Well, I provide you with two lists, the list in the beginning of the year, which is properties that are in the program. Then I provide you with the list that you have now, which is actually compiled with some from fire and everything that we have. Anyone that's being assessed any fee has a right to come here and contest that fee. That's what we're doing tonight. Because we also do abatements for fire, they would be included in the same list. Fire has a list of all of the properties with dwellings on them, and in certain zones have to be inspected under California regulations. And they divide that in three parts because a lot of what they do isn't going to recur as quickly as weeds do. So they do a third of the district now, a third next year, and a third the year after that. So they have a list and it's just rotating.
Mo, while I've got your attention, how do we address a county-owned parcel that's not in compliance?
I work with the agency that owns the parcel. If somebody shares it with me, I can get to the right people.
Yeah. You want the parcel number? I've got the parcel number.
Send it to me and I'll happily have it addressed.
All right, thank you.
Any other commission questions? Thank you very much for the replies. Anything else? Okay, great. If no more, I'll ask any public questions. Please step up to the mic and address your comments up here, please. Yeah.
My name is John O'Connell. I've sent you a document today. I'm not professing to be an expert, but I would just like to correct two pieces of information that have been provided to you. The first is that this list, which was described as part of the process, this is the list that we get from Santa Clara County Fire. My understanding is this goes out to essentially the 1/3 of the properties that are going to be inspected that year. Under the state law, Santa Clara County Fire has to inspect every property every 3 years. So this list is the properties that have been determined that will be inspected that year. And I believe that list is generated just on how Santa Clara County Fire determine it is appropriate to go about doing that work, given it's fairly challenging.
I see.
The second thing I would just like to correct is you were told about 2 public hearings as far as weed abatement is concerned. The problem is the timing of them. The abatement, the weed abatement public hearing that occurs in either January or February, it's not yet noticed, is the one that determines whether or not a property which has been found by weed abatement earlier that year is added to the compulsory inspection program that requires the minimum, once you're on it, of 3 years consecutive. And I missed out consecutive in what I sent to you. The public hearing today is to approve charges for properties from the prior year. So properties in 2023 that you reviewed last month as to whether or not they should be abated, you will not hear anything about the properties from weed abatement until after the public hearing in January. And then you will have this meeting in 2024 where you will hear about the costs to be put on their property taxes. So there was just some confusion over that, and I think that is a fairly fundamental reason why you have so many people in Los Altos Hills that are unaware of these charges on their property tax bills? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Any other public comments online or?
Yes, we have one online from Alan Epstein.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Alan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I'm totally confused by the various comments that have been made by the various people. The last guy tells us that the list is putting people on the list for abatement that was done last year to be paid for in this year's or next year's tax bill. I'm totally confused by that. But my question is I sent Mo a property that I observed on Ravensbury Avenue, which has weeds, and trying to find out, it happens to have no building on it. And so I'm trying to find out what it takes to get the weeds abated on that property, and would appreciate it if the president could ask Mo about that property. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. I guess is there any, just in general, the question about structures versus non-structures, do they both end up filtering through your?
Yeah, for the abatement, yes, they do.
Right.
In the particular property that this party was talking about, it was not on the weed abatement program list that you've already reviewed. So I legally cannot do any abatement at this point. We have to go through the process to the commencement report and a public hearing before I can abate that property legally. So that's the delay. I understand the property that person would like to see it done, and I understand why. Unfortunately, the law does limit us to protect the privacy and the public rights of all of your citizens.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the response. Any other?
I have a follow-up question.
Oh, yes, Commissioner.
Yeah. So that's a very good example. Is that property going to make it to the list that we're going to review next year?
It will be on the list that you're going to review, and that property owner will have an opportunity to tell you why it shouldn't be.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I think in general, what I get is there's a time hysteresis built in here so that, I know that people want things done now, but there's a certain amount of time, intentional bureaucratic time built into this. So, yes.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry. So gentleman in the front row, trying to understand your question. You're saying that this year your property was identified as a property that needed weed abatement, but then it wouldn't come due until next year? Is that correct, what you're saying?
Actually, I don't want to get into the specifics of a specific issue here tonight.
Okay.
So let's you can see it. I think Mo can answer it more generally, that you can see that when something's reported.
I was not clear on whether you're saying if your property is identified this year, you need to take care of it this year, or you have until next year to take care of it.
I guess a better question for Mo in general, the time.
I have an answer for you.
Thank you.
The weed abatement season is from April 30th to the end of October. The law requires that everything to be submitted to the tax roll be submitted on August 10th. Now, anybody who owns a calendar knows that's kind of in the middle. So anything that's done after the list that you have was produced, which had to be at least 10 days before now, everything from that list, any work that's done after that would have to roll to the next cycle, which would be next year. So some of it will appear. What you see on the weed abatement list, most of that is from this year, but it may not be all that there is.
Okay.
Does
that make sense to everybody here, or?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to appreciate it. I really like the way Ryan has graphically put this in. This is a cycle. And the question is, when do these things get picked up in the cycle? When do things go through the legal process to make sure that residents really do get legal rights to object and hear it in public? And it really is going to be steps where some things get delayed for a while, other things can get picked up in a convenient time, other things are going to take a year. So I think that's the reason why I think we help have these questions sometimes every year. Why is it the same situation? And I think seeing as a cycle explains why, depending on when it comes up, when it's going to get picked up and addressed. Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, any other public comments? Great. In that case, I think we will move on. Now, before we move on, I have a little, thank you, Mo, for this item. That'll be all for item 6. For a technical reason, apparently we had a technical glitch back on the public comments for items not on the agenda. And so real quickly, we're going to jump back and allow someone who was trying to raise their hand to offer a comment for an item not on the agenda. So all those same comments, I won't repeat everything for that. I think this gentleman understands how this works. So here we have a public comment for item not on the agenda that we can listen to.
And so, yeah, we received a message from a member of the public that they were not able to raise their hand during the public comment session. So I'm not sure if a member of the public has something for an item not on the agenda they would like to address right now. It appears no.
Okay,
So, yep.
we just want to make sure we offer the opportunity. And we're seeing nothing now. Okay, well, we want to make sure because we want people to be able to get a hold of us. So thank you for that. We'll move on to item 7, which is the public hearing on the proposed abatement of hazardous weeds, brush, and or rubbish. This is a public hearing to consider the proposed special assessment costs associated with the abatement of hazardous weed, brush, and or rubbish growing on properties that were declared to be a public nuisance at the February 21st, 2023 meeting, and which are included in the agenda packet as Exhibit A to Resolution 23-07. Santa Clara County Weed Abatement Manager, Mo Gumray, could you please provide the commission with a brief overview? We've obviously been over a bit of it, but if in case you want to quickly summarize exactly what this resolution is going to do, we'll give you that opportunity.
The weed abatement program runs in basically 3 steps. In November, you declare weeds, brush, and rubbish a public nuisance, and you set the date for a public hearing based on a list that's provided from my department. You hold the public hearing. Property owners who wish to be excluded from the program, feel that they're placed in it unfairly, have an opportunity to tell you why. You make a ruling. Anything that remains on the list, we will go out and inspect after the April 30th deadline. Every property that's inspected we're a cost recovery program, so we have no outside funding. So any property inspected is required to pay an inspection fee. This year, that inspection fee is $92. Any property that fails the inspection would also have to pay a work order processing fee, which this year was $519, which is why you see some that say $611. It's the 2 fees combined. And then any property that does not comply after we send the failure and the 2 weeks notice can be abated by our contractor. And then they would pay another fee. I think it's $826. I could be off on that. And the cost of the abatement. And those fees are all combined and provided to you in the list by property owner. And this is the last step in the process, which is the opportunity for property owners to come and say why they shouldn't need to pay that fee or any part of those fees, which again, you rule on. Anything that goes through here and is allowed to be submitted will then be submitted to the tax collector for collection and payment to the weed abatement program.
Great, thank you very much. Let's see, I will now open the public hearing. Time is 7:50. Please note if any members of the public would like to contest the inclusion of their parcel number in Exhibit A of Resolution number 23-07 to adopt the weed abatement report and order the cost of abatement to be a special assessment on their property tax roll, now is the time to do so. Any and all persons interested having any objections to said list or to any matter contained therein may appear and be heard. Are there any comments from the public?
Good evening. My name is Nahum Shaham. My wife Hannah and I are the owners of 14405 De Bell Road, Los Altos Hills, which is a rental. We have always been concerned about fire hazard, and we're always doing everything for fire safety, including cutting trees to be far from the structure, clearing underbrush, and mowing weeds more than once a year. We have spent over $5,000 in the end of December on this work, In addition, in the flat area of the property where the weeds are, we mowed the weeds twice due to late rain. The first one was in March, and then after that we traveled by and we saw it. So you could see that we put a lot of effort in it. We followed very closely the instruction in the brochure we got for fire safety for vegetation that got from the county. Our tenant, Anjali, was very impressed as we came twice a day during the contractor's work. They worked there for 4 days to remove all dry leaves and branches and make sure the tree branches are far away from the roof. And I'm telling you this so you could see that I followed that brochure to the letter, as hard as it is. We felt that we were compliant with all requirements. However, during a chance meeting a couple of weeks ago at Trader Joe's with an old friend of ours, 20 years old, we haven't seen for a while, we learned that we are on the program again. Program non-compliance. We don't know the reasons we were placed on the program or receive any report about the inspection of our property or findings of the inspection. Subsequent to writing this, I talked with Mo, and he said, the notice to destroy had 2 deadlines, 4/30 and March 1st, which is a mistake, I understand. And we tried to get in touch, but we didn't get any answer. So in summary, I'd like to get specific information about our property inspection and reason for non-compliance. I want to see details how our property was chosen to be on the program. We drive all the time in Los Altos Hill and seeing hundreds of properties with weeds. We like to have the names of contact information for leaders of programs so I can follow up with them. And I'd like to get guidance on how to remove our property from the list. This property, just to add, I have 10 more seconds. We own it for 15 years and we take care of just about everything ourselves with our contractor. Thank you very much. And I'll leave this for the record.
Thank you. How do we want to handle this? Do we want to talk to Mo about the specific case? Because I think we want to find out more about this and not proceed forward. Yeah.
I just talked with Mo before that meeting.
Okay.
Happened to meet him and talk with him, and I'll follow up with him. And he promised to go with me to the property and guide me what we need to do, if anything, in order to be fully compliant.
Okay, great. We'll talk to Mo here for a second, and we'll come back to. We want to make sure we address this for you.
I'm going to apologize. My computer had a catastrophic crash, and
oh yikes!
Now my database doesn't work at all.
Okay.
I did talk with the property owner. I am not sure as to the conditions of his property at the time of the inspection. We're going to look it over. If we're looking at the wrong property or we made a mistake, of course, we'll remove the fee from the record prior to it going to the tax collector so that he wouldn't be paying that fee. I will give guidance on what he needs to have done, personally meeting with him on his property to ensure that we both are on the same page.
Okay. Is there any action we need to? I think in that case, sounds like it's being personally covered. Are we okay?
I have a follow-up question.
Please.
Yeah, Mo, I'm just wondering how many people are that fit the description that this gentleman just provided us? In other words, to their viewpoint, they've done everything in their power and then it's been unjustly put on the list. I'm wondering how many, what's the percentage of your, if you can possibly answer that?
I don't know how many people feel that way as far as tell us that. It's a very low percentage, probably less than 5% of the people that we work with. That'll tell us I've done everything. I try to do everything. I'm following all the rules. I believe him and I believe the other people that tell me the same thing. I'm trying to follow a procedure and treat all properties in exactly the same manner. And I'm going to do that here. And I'll meet with property owners personally when I can, as I'm going to do for this gentleman, to ensure that he's treated fairly.
Yeah, that's wonderful. My purpose for asking this question was not to point fingers. I'm just trying to figure out, is there a process issue involved here that more or less you have gaps that are intentional or whatever in the process that causes some properties to be unjustly flagged or some properties not to be flagged at all?
Being as my department is 3 people, It's easy for us to miss properties. So yes, we'll agree with that. And yes, it is possible. I could possibly go to a property tomorrow, look at it, see it's non-compliant, and later that day, somebody comes out and cuts the grass. I don't know that at the time, and I have to work with what I know.
So I just want to make sure, oh yes,
Quick
please.
question. So how is it that the homeowner didn't know that his property was in the list? Did he get notices? Like, what is the protocol? Like,
In December of each year, every property that's on the weed abatement list countywide receives a packet of papers. He does have those papers. He did receive the notice that said he's on the list. As far as what he was saying was he didn't know that he was being charged the failed inspection fee, that he was getting the 611 instead of the 92. That, I'm not sure how they're noticed of this hearing.
I think one notice may be too little. I mean, usually you get a couple of notices. I think maybe that's something you might need to look into.
When we inspect the property and it's non-compliant, we do send a courtesy notice giving them 15 days to rectify it. So he didn't show, I don't know if you got that, but that we do mail it to the same address. So we do send a 15-day courtesy notice to any property that fails to meet the standards, giving them time to fix it before it goes to our contractor.
I also get the sense that you don't actually live at this property. You have a tenant at the property.
Might be traveling.
So I'm guessing that maybe, the information on that property is not going to him directly. It's going to whoever his tenant is, may not be passing that information along. So,
That's probably the issue, yeah.
yeah. So,
This is correct.
so just to make sure things are wrapped up, because I don't want to let things fall through the cracks here. I'm glad we're hearing you're going to get very personal attention on this. And it may go two ways. One is you may find that there's a mistake here and things come off the rolls, or you may find there's information you didn't understand and there still is work to be done to proceed. We're not going to judge that today because it really is information we don't have, but I want to make sure that you feel heard and that you're going to get some attention to make sure this gets finalized in whatever direction it goes.
One short comment.
Please, please step up to the mic though. Please step up to the mic so we can all hear you.
I want to say this document can use some work in technical writing. It's not very clear, and I did this. I don't want to brag, but I have my PhD from UC Berkeley, so I know how to read complex papers. This was extremely complex to understand.
And that's the one. That's the letter comes from.
Yes.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you very much. And by the way, I'm giving a little extra attention to this because we don't get many cases like this. I want to make sure we really hear this kind of case well so that we hear it, because this is we don't want to have multiple cases like this. We want to make sure we get it nailed down. Thank you. Any other public comments? I see a hand behind you first.
Good evening. My name is Lu Yang. I'm the owner of property at 27727 Startup Way. I've been owning this property for like 27 years, and this is the first time I get a note from the weed abatement from the county of this year. So I received this letter was stamp marked as May 30th. Okay, so I did react right away and called a couple times and send an email. So make some correction. To my understanding, my house is quite compliant to the rule. Yeah, because my backyard has like 30-foot cement plus some bush over there. I wonder how did I get this this kind of weed amendment notice? So to my understanding, I'm glad to be here to know all the cycle of this procedures according to Ryan. The fire department will do the inspect for a couple of times. I remember 3 or 4 times. If not complying to this rule, then send a message to my house. But then after a few days, they notify us, Santa Clara County about this non-compliance. Yeah. So far, I didn't see any kind of notification until I got one surprise letter from the Santa Clara County. Even I did some correction and sent 2 emails to this department, but they didn't give me any chance to do re-inspect. According to the procedure, looks like I should have 15 days until June 15 to do some kind of correction. I did that, yeah. So I cut some along the road to the public road. Before, my wife told me the job belonged to the county. However, this time I did it myself. Okay, so this is the way I did that. So according to the procedure, I think I didn't get a fair notification by just get a surprise later in late May. So I would like to ask the county to remove my name, my property from this list, yeah, or at least give me some chance to make some kind of re-inspection according to your procedure here. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for your time. So that's
Thank you.
all my comments. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What do you, commissioners, any comments on how to address this? Because Mo, do you have any comments on the, because, yeah.
I wasn't sure were you added to the program this year or were you being charged a fee?
You are going to add it.
Add it, okay.
In the next year. Okay. However,
I'll also work with this property owner. I'll take a look at his property. We've been very active this year with a lot of rain and a lot of grass. It's been very busy, but I also have new inspectors and notoriously can be overzealous at times when they're starting out. They want to make a good impression. So depending on how the property looks, we'll see what happens with it. I'll work with the property owner.
Is that good? Does that work? Great, thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, John?
Hi, again, my name's John O'Connell. You've heard from a couple of people, simply because anecdotally, I happen to see their names on the list. Some people you haven't heard from, my next door neighbors. I've lived next door to them for 23 years. They maintain their property perfectly. I saw them, they've been on the list for failed inspection fees for 2 years, because 611 is 92, which is the processing fee plus a failed inspection fee. There's never been any weed abatement ordered or done by the weed abatement department on their property. The data that you were just given should clearly identify for you that of the $25,000 that you're being asked to take out of Los Altos residents through these tax charges on their property taxes, more than $20,000 is fees for a department. There is hardly any cost for weed abatement. Now, Mo and I have just had a discussion, and we've had many discussions over the years because this program has been broken for a long time. We heard in the process from the fire captain, we have one inspection, then we have a subsequent inspection, and in between times, if there's rain, etc., we find a way to work with people. That's not how weed abatement works. If your contractor has to call off because it's rained and weed abatement drive by, you're on the list. There's no negotiation, no discussion. That's why you have 80 to 90 properties every year on the list. These charges, from the data that you've just been given, only 3 properties have had any weed abatement done. The rest of the 80 are being charged fees to fund the department.
Can I ask you, sorry, how much of the fees did you say?
The fees are $92 for an inspection fee, but there is a failed inspection fee of Mo just gave you the numbers.
500, right?
Right, so if you look through the data in front of you, you have 60 properties with a $92 fee, and you have 23 properties with a $611 fee. So when you go through and do the math,
Oh, that's how you got the 25,000. Okay.
you have
I get that.
$25,000, and of the three properties which have got 1,116 and 3,000, they've also got fees in them. So there is less than $5,000 of actual weed abatement, significantly less. There's more than $20,000 just paying the fees to keep the department running. So my request of you tonight is only put on the property taxes fees for Los Altos Hills residents who are found to be non-compliant and weed abatement has been done. And this entire process needs to go through a thorough review. If you do not do that, you will just continue this process. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I just wish to clarify. We are not on the list.
Right. Right.
Just to be clear.
Understood.
I have no acts because I'm
Thank you.
on
I
the list.
understand. You've had your time. Thank you. Okay, great. Any other public comments? Any other online ones? Okay, great. Oh, the item, let me show you this right here. Okay, I guess I will now entertain a motion here. Actually, what's that? Oh, well, I now close the public hearing at 8:07. I want to check to see before we move on for a motion. Mo, is there any indicated changes to the resolution as currently in the packet?
Not at this time, but I'll be working with someone that might have a change.
Okay.
I'll inform you of that after the conversation takes place.
So clearly, if you find something personally, those would not go through the list if you're found to be in compliance.
If this property owner is compliant, he would only have the $92 fee. We would take the
Right.
519 off, and I'll inform the council of that.
I see. Thank you.
I'm curious to understand what percentage of the people who are on the list actually know about it. That would be a good, is there a way to find out?
Well, it's an interesting question about how many pieces of mail have, to be where they are now, how many pieces of mail or notifications have they received?
That's one part of it, but the question is, if there are 100 people on the list, what percentage of that 100 know that they're on that list?
We've sent notices to the owner's mailing address as listed by the assessor's office for every single property on the list.
Okay.
Well, I will now entertain a motion. Let's see, allowing for motion and a second for us to, for this resolution 23-07. Anyone care to make the motion?
So moved, Commissioner Tanka.
And second?
Vice Sherlock.
Thank you. Okay, now open for discussion. Any discussion with the commission on this? I see you, Jim, words struggling to.
Yeah, I'm actually quite perplexed because I think there's some real gaps here. People perhaps getting the letters, but not knowing what they're on hook for in terms of the $500 plus 92. So they don't actually take the time to read the notice that come to them. Maybe they get it, but they just, I've no doubt that the lists are sending to right people. The letters are actually being sent to right people because they use assessors, the address on the of the record. So that's fine. But I'm wondering how many property owners pay attention, and I'm wondering if they pay attention, do they know how to escalate the issue and get their property removed in an inappropriate way, as given as examples of the to the contrary by the gentlemen here. So I'm just as a quandary. I mean, I'm just not saying everybody else has the same question, but I do have that question.
You have comments, please?
Sorry, is this on? In the city of Palo Alto, when I was there, we had the right to inspect every single property in the wild urban land interface. And if the homeowner was not home, we would write down a specific list of what the violations were and what needed to be corrected. And if they were there, we'd explain it to them. But it seems like there might be a shortfall here where people aren't getting that information directly, which could cause confusion. That's just my opinion or my thought.
Mo, if you have a comment, sure.
For the weed abatement program, when we inspect a property, we've already noticed the property owner before we went to inspect, months before, so they had plenty of time to address the issues. But when we find a property to be non-compliant, we do send them a 15-day courtesy notice, which does mark what we're concerned with, high brush and grass. So they do receive a notice that says, your property's not compliant, and that's the issue. It also lists the inspector and a phone number to call so they can talk to the person who actually looked at the property.
Thank you. You know, this is kind of this is always a tough one because none of us like to put our fellow residents on a list like this. And we know it's an imperfect program because, as people know, I know a neighbor who's got lots of weeds and he's on the list and so forth. So I'm not here to defend or critique the proposal, but it seems to be one where it's about how much it's a notification program as much as anything. And it takes a lot to get to this point. My one relief is that there are very few cases actually get to us this close. And when they do get us this close, someone has pointed out, they've always gotten attention very quickly. Mo's for many years, every year I've been here, Mo has been here to answer anyone who had a question. The question is, the open question here is, how come more people aren't doing that? It makes you wonder, why isn't everyone on the list? No.
We were fortunate that it was an educational opportunity to explain to them why we needed those things done. And it made sense to them, like, oh, okay, I get it. And then it will be done. So, you know, we had that connection, which was fortunate, that doesn't exist.
Right. So without critiquing the program in any way, the question, I think it's an open question that can't be answered is, for the people who are still on that list, why don't they know? And, you know, what else can we do to get their attention for things? And are they on the, you know, let alone, shouldn't they be there? Maybe
Maybe the envelope can say urgent, last final request, something in red, something that gets there. Maybe it's not something, right? Maybe we need to brainstorm on what would get people's attention.
Right. Because ultimately we don't want them on the list. We want them like these folks here who are trying to do the right thing.
But you know, we all get so much mail that if something is not in your face, it's very easy to miss, very easy. So how can we get people's attention? Maybe it's as easy as that.
Right, absolutely. So
Roger, can I ask something? So I'm really curious how many of these properties are rentals, because it might be that a good portion doesn't get to the actual property owner. And so, I mean, it'd be interesting to do a study on that, because if it turns out to be 20-30% are rentals, we need to find another way to contact them.
I suspect that's a big part of it, though. Let's say the announcements do go to the owner, the tax assessment ones, by the time it gets to that point. So
the notices, all mailings that we do are mailed to the owner of the property. Ultimately, they're responsible whether they have tenants or not.
Right.
So we always send to the owner's mailing address with the assessor's office. So if they move or change their address and don't inform the assessor's office, it could be a delay. The courtesy notice is a card. It's not in an envelope. So it's right there. You don't even have to open it. You just look at it and read it.
Okay.
Yes. Can you put the microphone so everyone can hear? Mm-hmm.
Just curious if at any point it's sent registered where there's a signature required by the owner, if that happens at any point in the process.
I'm pretty sure that does not. So, yeah.
Roger, may I bore you with a little story?
Please.
So near my house, on a pathway I use, is a property that is perplexing in the sense of it's got much tall grass and then abandoned, kind of falling over wooden structures. It's a mess, and it has 3 different Porsches sitting there with all this tall grass around them. And I thought, what should a fire commissioner do? And so I took one of my business cards and I wrote him a note. I stuck it on the door. This is about 4 weeks ago. Fire season coming, better take care of that stuff. And so today I decided to go ahead and turn them into the town, because they've done nothing. The Porsches are still sitting in the grass. The abandoned building is still sitting there. And lo and behold, their address is on our list. I don't know if that means it's going to get fixed, because I think it's been like this a lot of years. But the fact that some people don't respond to things, some people don't respond to stuff, and then we got to hit them, because this is a dangerous property, and I want to get it fixed.
any other comment before we, so we have it since we have a motion?
I have a question.
Oh, yes. I say Commissioner Basigi first.
I just was wondering, is the WUI the category we use to inspect the properties, or all of the properties in Los Altos Hills are subject to this particular inspection? On and off?
It's all the properties within the district and most of the county are subject to it.
Right.
Thank you.
Great. I'm sorry I've cut you off here for Commissioner's sake. Please step up to the mic. Yeah.
So in response to Commissioner McDonald's question, as the fire department, when we did the inspections, we had that exact same interaction with the public when we were able to make contact with them, just to explain that. So similar to Palo Alto. Okay.
Okay, let's see. Okay, Ryan, please. Thank you for that.
Please, I want to add and reiterate, the February mailing from County Fire includes a complete description of what defensible space looks like and what is expected of the person. Our programs certainly tout that as well. So as people engage with our brush chipping and HIZ, and if they're engaging with Firewise, they'll get all that information as well. The engine companies will, in County Fire as well, make contact with the residents. We'll share with them what is defensible space. It was small on my presentation, but there is a door hanger that the engine companies will leave for non-contact. And it's literally, you check off the things, roof, pine needles, leaves, and other dead vegetation on the roofs, et cetera. 100 feet, well, it's 30 feet of defensible space. So it's a checkbox and that is left. Then there's that re-inspection. So there's that third contact. And then the DFM is the fourth contact. And then county weed abatement is the fifth contact. And all of them are saying the same story, and it's codified in California law.
Yes, District Clerk.
Just real quick before Mo speaks. And I did want to point out if you go back and look at the January commission meeting, item number 5 is the packet from the weed abatement. So it includes a sample letter. You probably can't see my phone, but there's a large notice to destroy weeds. And then it does have fire safety, vegetation management information. So offline, you can take a look at that if you're curious as to what the residents receive.
Great, thank you very much. We have a motion and a second here. Any public comment or any other commissioner comments on this? Any public comments on the resolution? Please.
Maybe a long-term.
Please speak in the mic so everyone can hear you.
A longer-term proposal. I mean, we all talk about sending letters and do all of this paper, wood products that you send by mail. Can we actually put it on the net, in the cloud, very much like the assessor? You just go by parcel number. Right now, you see your taxes. I don't even know if it's possible, but if it's possible that I go to the assessor, they have all the infrastructure. I go there, instead of my taxes, I will see also, fire, weed abatement, whatever it takes. I mean, there is the basic infrastructure there. It's to add to that particular software.
Yep, it's all about the communication. Yep. Yes, public comments? Yep.
I still think from the discussion, we failed to understand the point. The point is, properties are being inspected. Council member or Commissioner Tyson just pointed out, there are properties that need action to be cleaned. Properties are being inspected. They're being put on a list. They're being subjected to fees. But in actual fact, I just had the discussion with Mo. He's having great difficulty, as we do as residents, to find people to go out to do the work. But if we have difficulty and our contractor is delayed by 2 days and Mo goes out, or his inspection team go out to do it, it's not like the fire department where you get 2 chances or 3 chances or Palo Alto or etc. You're on the list. $20,000 is to pay the department to do the job, and no work is getting done on abatement. I have not seen that so far we've grasped that is the problem. And we need to fix the inspection feedback and to have more than one chance, right, before programs get put onto this list. Else you'll have another 80 for the next 10 years. Thank you.
To be clear, I do understand your point about what these fees represent. And that's another discussion as to what those fees are for and why they're not. There's a difference between the actions that we all want to be taken versus these fees are being charged. I think it's a separate discussion. I just want to let you know that you've been heard on that point. Any other public comments on this resolution? Seeing none, I think we can vote.
President Spreen?
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock?
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji?
Yes, with reservations.
I'm sorry, with
Yes, with reservations.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
And the motion passes 7-0.
Great, thank you. We'll now move on to item 8, which is the fire chief report. And this is the monthly report for June 2023. Fire Chief Kirkhoff, can you please provide this report for us?
Good evening, everyone. Corey, are you going to play the report? Perfect. Thank you. Oh, there we go. All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners, President Spreen, Vice President Sherlock. Couple of things here for June's report for 2023. As you go down, again, this is should be a fairly simple report for this this month. We didn't have a lot of calls. I believe it was 67. All right, I'll look to the side here. You had 9 programs in which there were 503 participants. Are you able to just?
Yeah, can we rotate that?
Rotate it.
Go up to view. Go up to view. Okay.
Rotate view, there it is.
There you go. Perfect,
Hey.
thank you. So again, this is really, again, showing you if there is a trend, and the trend that we're seeing really is that we're still below the 2019. This is the left top graphic that has the bar graph with 449 cumulative calls for the year, in which at this time in 2019, pre-pandemic, we were at 495. We've got, again, 67 total calls for the month of June, broken down, again, very similarly like most months, with 60% approximately in EMS, 30% in service, a few fire alarms, hazard conditions. There was one fire, it was a vehicle fire along, I believe, 280 and El Monte. I think it was a 1992 Acura model vehicle that was put out quickly, but had engine compartment damage. Again, over to the left just shows call volume by time of day. Again, with the district being a bit spread out and definitely having 280 coming through your corridor or running through the corridor, it's pretty consistent from 5 a.m. all the way to about midnight in terms of call volume. And then again, on the column underneath that is just your performance from County Fire in terms of first due unit on scene. This includes call processing time at County Communications. And so by the time it includes the call pickup, call processing, and dispatch, and then on scene time. So you have an average for the urban densities, code 3 response of 4 minutes and 43. And for rural densities, which by just the definition is a little bit more challenging to get to, at 6 minutes, 39 seconds. These are average response times versus, again, what you may have seen recently in the LAHCFD survey is 90th percentile times. So there is a place that, because of the amount of geographic area for Los Altos Hills, that you should compare both the 90th percentile as well as the average response times. We can go ahead and go from there to the map. And here's just the spread of calls with the district's jurisdictional boundary. And they're just kind of spread again with calls both on the west and east side of 280. Again, that's if 280 is the north-south delineator there. And from there, again, if you go to the next, I think that's it, right? That's it. So, so that's basically the report out. I do have the Palo Alto Station 8, but I will add that for the month of June, and again, this is a place that County Fire really takes exceptional pride. It goes back to this conversation here with why weed abatement is important. So County Fire's 2310 Charlie, that's our type 3 strike team, which includes one out of El Monte Station, was deployed on Saturday at midnight, Saturday night, Sunday morning, down to Riverside County. And that's because there was a lot of homes that were threatened in the wildland urban interface that was in between Banning, I believe Hemet, San Jacinto. And so again, when we get the phone call as the op area coordinator, we go ahead and send resources where the fire is, and then we backstaff. And then you have here in district, again, another type 3, 3 more type 6s. Those are all wildland capable vehicles, as well as your water tender that's available. That's at Keto Station over in Montecito. And those resources are on the road back home and should be landing back here hopefully before 10 p.m. As they went out to, again, the rabbit fire down in Riverside County. So with that said, again, preparedness and trying to keep to retired Captain Cronin's point that if we can get time and the weed abatement and specifically the fuel break allows for time, then we can go ahead and put our arms wrapped around some of these incidents. We did have an incident this morning around Altos, in which we had fires being set. We were able to get that there quickly. We actually deployed our fuels crew, 8-member plus a captain out there to help create, again, mop up as well as a fuel break for that fire, in addition to our frontline engine companies, both wildland and type 1 capable. And our fuels crew is, again, this is where we're doing mitigation efforts in the West Valley cities, and then we can use those fuel crews as hand crews to do actual operational work throughout the district. So that said, moving forward to, again, the Station 8 staffing, and the intent is to be able to get to fires quicker, have some eyes out there during the day, during fire season. So Station 8 was staffed by Palo Alto Fire for those 15 days in June. They responded to 3 MS calls and 1 motor vehicle accident. This was provided to us by Palo Alto Fire. And then currently in July, you have Station 8 staffing also done by County Fire. So we were able to send out the 22 people down to Riverside County and continue staffing Station 8. And we'll continue to staff Station 8 through the month of July until Palo Alto takes over starting August 1st. As a reminder for everybody, again, it's just this place that County Fire definitely is listening to the feedback, listening to the challenges. Again, it's a cycle for us, and we have a cycle in which we do the weed abatement inspections or the going through the inspection list, but then starting in May, we do hydrant inspections. And again, this gets us back out in the WUI, gets us back out there to make sure water supply is good, that we trim away any vegetation around hydrants, whether it's in Los Altos Hills, Saratoga Hills, Los Gatos Hills. So we're doing all of these things to help get us ready for fire season before it really, you're in the thick of it come August of this year. So with that said, that's the end of the fire chief's report for the month of June.
Great, thank you. Any discussion from here from the commission? Seeing none. Any public comments on the fire report? Seeing none.
Sorry, I'm seeing Alan is clapping, and I'm not sure if that's a hand raised to speak or just kudos to the chief.
Do we?
He has a hand raised, yeah.
He does have his hand raised? Okay. Okay, your comments for me, Alan?
Yes, thank you. It would be advantageous if the station report for 8 also contained a map that showed where the responses took place. As the commission knows, Station 8 responds both to responses in the fire district as well as responses in Palo Alto. I believe we had that information in prior periods, or at least the street names where the responses occurred. I also have some questions with regards to the LAHCFD report. I don't know when's the appropriate time to ask them, but they relate to some of the.
I think that there'll be a time later for that. Let me confirm that. Yeah, it's coming up later in the agenda, so I'm going to hold you. It's on the agenda, so I think you'll find it better to wait for that when there's more discussion on that.
Thank you very much. My only question is will the fire chief be there when those discussions take place? Because I think the questions I have relate to the fire chief's response.
I can't promise that. And anyway, your comments should come to me anyway. And it's coming up next. I can't, I don't know if we need to have the fire chief here, and any of your comments will be taken by staff, and we'll get back with the fire chief for anything we need to get from there as well. So we're not gonna have a dialogue with the chief on that item. Any new comments here on the fire chief report? Okay, I guess that's the end of that. Thank you. Chief, so we sort of covered the Palo Alto Fire Station 8 report. Did you have anything separate you wanted to say on that? I think we covered that,
She did, yeah, both at the same
okay,
time.
we got
we're
both. Just want to make sure. Great. In that case, we can thank you very much for those reports. We will move on to item 9, which is the general manager report. And Alan, by the way, that will include the LAHCFD discussion. So I wasn't, that's what I was referring to. So General Manager Logan, please provide report.
Oh, thank you, President Spreen, commissioners, staff, and public. The cover photo before you is from the North County LAHCFD community meeting held on July 13th. Members of the community and I attended the meeting and presented public comments along with callers from Los Altos Hills who added their voices at the Zoom meeting. And thanks to Commissioner Basigi, Tyson, Mayor Los Altos Hills Mayor Swan, Councilmember Lisa Schmidt for attending and speaking in support of Los Altos Hills County Fire District, along with staff members Paige Russell and Russell Moriali. Next slide, please. This slide was just inserted today when it was received from the Town of Los Altos Hills staff as an update to the Los Altos Hills Hazard Mitigation Plan as part of the Santa Clara County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan effort. Los Altos Hills County Fire District staff has also been coordinating with Los Altos Hills and attending these plan meetings. The work assesses the risk and vulnerabilities of local hazards on our community. The goal of the Hazard Mitigation Plan is to mitigate the effects of disaster through long-term action that reduce impacts on people and property. To provide comments about the draft document, please follow the link. And I think there's the link. And then at the very end of the report, we inserted a page that gave a little more information. So this again shows the good teamwork and partnership between Los Altos Hills town staff and the district, that we can amplify each other's messages as requested and get the message out immediately to the community. Next slide, please. Staff attended an insurance trend meeting with the Department of Insurance, and it was very interesting to listen to the half-a-day dialogue that occurred, which was a workshop examining catastrophic modeling and insurance. And the reason I bring this up is because the whole issue of insurance trends is becoming part of our community outreach and education program to talk with residents about what they can do to help mitigate their concerns about insurance being discontinued or not available to them. And what staff provides the messaging is to inform residents that if residents can demonstrate to insurance agencies of property or their property and home hardening, use of HIZ assessments, and participation in defensible space brush chipping and debris removal, any of these programs the district provides, it can increase the ability to retain homeowners insurance and, in some situations, qualify the resident for a lower premium costs, particularly if they're establishing a Firewise USA neighborhood where premium reductions may qualify. So I think that's really important for the commission to know that we're starting to use that now in our COE outreach. It's the whole topic of insurance. If you go to the next slide, tomorrow, 1 to 2:30 will be a insurance trend virtual town hall, and that will be with Assemblyman Mark Berman, State Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara, along with a panel discussion including CAL FIRE and other elected officials, including the Woodside Mayor. And this is a unique opportunity for public to hear the many issues facing home insurance and the various factors driving insurance. And then you can sign up on this link, and registration is required. Okay, moving to the next slide. This is the Office of Emergency Management Operational Area Briefings. I think we've all experienced a sobering tone in here tonight with the advent of fire and weather extremes coming at us. So with the recent hot weather events, it commenced the County Operational Area Briefing led by the Office of Emergency Management. And I just wanted to go through the protocol real quickly with you. Emergency Services Manager Victoria Beebe attends these briefings. Sometimes they're 1 or 2 a day, sometimes a couple of per week. She follows up with a summary to the Los Altos Hills personnel, to the commission, and then coordinates the messaging to residents. And on the losaltoshills.org website, we have a homepage banner, and we very rapidly post the warning for the public that provides a link to information necessary for the community to be informed and prepare, respond, and take precautionary measures. And so the chain of emergency operations is a collaboration between the Emergency Services Manager, Los Altos Hills Town staff, County Public Information Officer to ensure coordination of messaging and immediate and accurate notification to the public. And this communication model was extremely effective for us during the multiple and hazardous storm events in December of 22 and into March of 23, when it literally went on for a couple of weeks. We can remember that when we had to cancel one of our commission meetings, and the other commission meeting was during very difficult times with weather. So I think Victoria is going to talk about this a little more when we get into her slides, but I did want to bring up that issue. Okay, the next slide gets into the LAHCFD. Formation, which LAHCFD is Local Agency Formation Commission Countywide Fire Service Review. The January 12th was the Technical Advisory Committee. Staff attended that presentation to hear from the consultant the draft Countywide Fire Service Review. On the 12th that evening, the staff attended the South County Community Meeting for the public to receive the draft. And then on July 13th was the North County meeting, and staff and members of the commission and the public and Los Altos Hills Town member officials attended that and made their public remarks. And again, thank you to those who spoke out with their voices, appreciating the benefits that Los Altos Hills provides to a very difficult terrain to live in that is WUI and needs the benefits of fire safety for life and property. And I would like to remind the public and the commission that written public comments on the fire service review to LAHCFD are accepted up to August the 2nd. And then there's the link as to where to send those comments. No final action will be taken at the meeting on August the 2nd, but it will be followed by another public hearing, and that will be in October. So that slide gives you all the specifics of what's going to occur. The team that's working with for the district on the LAHCFD response will be gathering together and sending our comments to LAHCFD in a more official document that will point out any inaccuracies that we perceive to be in the report and ask for revisions to the LAHCFD report. Next slide is, again, encouraging the residents to add their voice. You can see the key findings, they're underlined. They do talk about the prior history where the district has been recommended for dissolution of the district. And then the LAHCFD report also points out on those pages listed the residents of the very good programs that Los Altos Hills County Fire District has established. So I think this is a key area where residents may want to be involved and use their voices. And then I think at that, well, let me just mention the last one, and that is, I'm finished with LAHCFD now. Moving on to reimbursement, I want to let you know for the reimbursement for procurement of the truck by Central Fire for the district. I'm at the June 20th commission meeting. Information was provided in the fire chief's report pertaining to the fire truck to be procured, and the reimbursement agreement is now being prepared, and we're hoping will be submitted to the Board of Commissioners at the August 15th meeting. And the next step in the procurement process will be to present this agreement at the commission meeting, and County Council is assisting the district and County Fire in the preparation of the reimbursement agreement. And that concludes my remarks, General Manager remarks, and very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, General Manager Logan. Any discussion with the commission? Any questions? Oh, yeah, we have one. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, General Manager. I appreciate that report on the LAHCFD. And as you mentioned, I attended the second one, July 13th, and via Zoom. It was interesting. I was kind of struck that there were so few people engaged, that there were about a half dozen speakers in person and about a similar number, maybe smaller, via Zoom. And all of the people that spoke had various expressions of support of the independence of the district. So I was surprised that there weren't more, but I think that was enough. But can you tell me just what was the one on the 12th like, the South County? It sounds like you attended that one.
I did, and it was more sparse in its attendance.
Oh.
And I will say too, if you look at the general manager packet that's online, the comments made by Commissioner Basigi, myself, Paige Russell, Russell Morale, are in the packet. And I really, really would implore you to read that, because it was those public comments were written with a lot of passion. And I found myself having to kind of control myself when I got up and spoke. I hope it didn't come across that way, but I just kind of get flamed up inside when I think of all the great work that this commission, and I really believe we stand on the shoulders since 1939 of all the commissioners and all the residents and the volunteers who've worked to make this a very honorable district, and one that has done tremendous benefit to the community, that we just can't let it down at any point in time. And so that's why I think the passion came through as we were all speaking, because we believe so desperately in the importance of where you live, this woolly terrain, having those benefits, having every possible regionalization and tool you can possibly have to protect your life and to your property. There's nothing more important, I don't think, to any human being than their life and their property. So we stood on those shoulders. And I will say I received a lot of emails that persons from residents who spoke out in public, written public comment, just didn't know who to send them to. So they sent them to the Board of Supervisors, copied me. I then transferred them to that email address for LAHCFD. So there was probably more participation that met the eye.
I saw some of those. So yes, that's great. Thank you for that response.
I also have a piece of good news. I may add to that. I'm a hiker, so I hike a lot in the hills, and I run into people and I say, pardon me, are you a resident of the hills? And if the answer is yes, I'll let them know that this is going on. And to the person, in 3 groups of people I've seen, they all said they're aware of it and they were going to communicate.
Great. Wow. Awesome. Any other commissioner comments? I know we have at least one public comment related to this LAHCFD item. So public comments on the general manager report.
Yep, wrong one.
Yeah, looks like Alan.
Yep. Both clapping and waving. There we go.
Yes, thank you. I'm clapping because of the positive response that was in the LAHCFD report with regards to the importance of Los Altos Hills County Fire District and the fact that the consultant recognized that there was no impetus for consolidation, which is the most appropriate and active term to use. So that's why I'm clapping. With regards to some comments about the report that troubled me, and ones that had to do with the fire chief. First off, the report says that, however, CCFD does not meet its adopted response time benchmark based on call type and severity in any category within the Los Altos Hills County Fire District service area. I think the chief attempted to explain the difference between the average time and the 90% percentile, But that's a rather damning statement to make in the report, and I think it requires some type of response. I also say that the report points out that our wonderful fire station does not meet the requirements of a fire station. And I think that also needs to be quantified and addressed. And when I asked that question of LAHCFD, they told me that this was a self-assessment, that the fire department reported the building as being not meeting the needs of a modern fire station. Unfortunately, the report uses a boilerplate to try and explain that, whereas it seems to me it would be much more appropriate to actually list what the problems are so someone could take appropriate action. The explanation about the fire truck, there was a difference between what the LAHCFD report showed and what Chief Glass reported at the last meeting. Chief Glass reported that T-74 was a 1996 75-foot quint, but the LAHCFD report says it's a 2016 rear-mounted aerial frontline unit, which certainly shouldn't need to be replaced as soon as this. Also, the utilization was extremely small. It was less than 1% in terms of utilization. So those are some questions that came up when I read the report that I would be hopeful of seeing some more. There's also some errors in terms of the station manpower and some other things, but I'll send those in writing. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment, and congratulations on the lack of impetus for consolidation.
Great. Thank you for the comments, and we'll follow up with some of those things, I'm sure. All interesting comments. Any other public comments? Thinking that's it. In that case, we will move on to item 10, the organizational planning session. Items 10A and 10B are to receive a report on and discuss a district organizational planning and consider establishment of an ad hoc subcommittee to discuss organizational growth. General Manager Logan and Municipal Resource Group Strategic Planning Consultant Scott, could you please provide a report?
Yes, thank you, President Spreen. If I could start off, would that be okay? Sure, thank you, with comments. With the commencement of the 2023 fiscal year, it's important to align our district development, planning, and activities to be consistent with the 23-27 strategic plan, adopted budget, and the emerging personnel organization. An all-day in-person planning session is scheduled in early August for the district team to work together in developing a work plan aligned with the 23-27 strategic plan and the 23-24 budget, two of the district's core pillars. The objective of this first session is to develop a more detailed work plans by program areas, project timelines, desired outcomes, and measurements through the planning process to be used by the commission, staff, and public. Recommendations for an appointment of a 2023 ad hoc commission organizational planning subcommittee is this organization planning process will benefit from an ad hoc commission subcommittee input for the planning session, debrief process, and development of future follow-up sessions. It's expected the ad hoc subcommittee will conclude upon completion of the work plan and templates resulting from the planning session no later than the end of November 23. The ad hoc subcommittee members will serve as a sounding board to the preparation and debrief process with the goal of ensuring the commission expectations are achieved and that timely communication is maintained. I'll ask strategic plan facilitator Marcy Scott to speak about the outcomes expected from the district's first all-day organizational planning session and give remarks about the overall planning. So Marcy, turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Logan. Good evening. So this session is expected to provide a variety of benefits, not the least of which is meeting and collaborating in person, which this staff doesn't have much opportunity to do. And this session will generate a work plan for this fiscal year 23-24 with the elements the commission has mentioned previously, including timelines, assigned staff and resources needed to perform the projects and programs. Next, we plan to project a general work plan for the length of the strategic plan. And as we engage in the planning process, we will identify general trends expected to impact district work as described in the strategic plan. And our work is expected to inform preparation for the fiscal year 24-25 budget, which surprisingly is around the corner. And our efforts will review planning tools to support the work plan, and we will discuss technology, how best to use it for programs, projects, efficiencies, measurements, and reporting. And lastly, we expect to identify operational best practices to be developed and implemented. So all those items are goals that will come out of this planning session in early August. And again, to reiterate, we really want to be sure we're aligned with the commission's expectations, and that's the basis for the recommendation for an ad hoc subcommittee of 1 to 3 members. And that concludes the comments.
Great, thank you. Any discussion with commission in terms of understanding the goal of this meeting and potential subcommittee? I was going to say, I think that this is really in step with our interest in both multi-year planning, aligned with strategic plan, as well as transparency in terms of our organization and staffing requirements and so forth. So I think we're really jumping on top of that. Okay, let's see. Any public comment on this meeting or for understanding of that? Seeing none, great. In that case, we will move on to item 10C, which is an appointment of the commissioners to serve on this ad hoc commission organizational planning subcommittee. The focus of this ad hoc subcommittee will be limited to the discussion of the district organizational growth and a work plan for fiscal year 24 with an implementation schedule, technology requirements, and deliverables for short and long-term planning. As an ad hoc subcommittee, it will not be subject to the meeting rules required under the Brown Act and will be made up of less than a quorum of the commission, which is 3 or fewer members. If this commission is amenable to the creation of the ad hoc subcommittee, I will now accept volunteers for said subcommittee. And just before we do that, my understanding of this is, again, this is really to be a sounding board for the staff as this is not for us to go do the work doing this. This is so that they can have immediate feedback in terms of, hey, wait, is this really what the commission is looking for, or at least a subcommittee, a sub-quorum version of it. So they're not doing all this work, then coming to us and finding that we're out of step. So it's really just a way to make sure that it's effectively used and efficiently used and not wasting any time. That's the goal of this. So I don't think it's going to be a heavy use of commission time. You're not going to be in there, doing spreadsheets and working it out. It's a sounding board type of thing is what I see it as. I hope that's a fair categorization of it. Okay, good. Any volunteers? Oh, I see 2 hands already. Great. Okay. Any third hand?
Sure.
I see.
If you guys are willing.
I think that's great. I see Warren, Tonka, and McDonald. And let's see. What else do I have to do to? I will need a motion from the commission, from one of these 2 folks to appoint these 3 to the ad hoc subcommittee.
I move that we appoint Commissioners Warren, Tonka, and McDonald to the Ad Hoc Commission Organizational Planning Subcommittee.
And I second that motion.
Great. Let's see. Any further discussion from the commission? I doubt it. Any public comment on this item? I doubt it. Great, thank you. We will now vote on the creation of the ad hoc subcommittee with Commissioners Tonka, Warren, and McDonald. The District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the roll call.
President Spreen.
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock.
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi.
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
And the commission has approved the creation of the ad hoc subcommittee with Commissioners Tonka, Warren, McDonald serving as a count 7-0.
Great, thank you all, and thank you for your participation. We're looking forward to the results of that. Now move on to item 10D to approve an end date for the ad hoc subcommittee. I'm sure you enjoy that one. As presented in the memorandum report, staff recommends approval of an end no later than the end of November 2023 for this ad hoc committee organizational planning subcommittee. Any questions from the commission on this item? I would just add that the point of this is to really make sure it is ad hoc. So, and this will not become any sort of permanent thing. Any questions? Any comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Basiji moves.
I move that the ad hoc committee be terminated by November of 2023.
Second, Tyson seconds.
Great. Any further discussion? Any public comments? Let's vote.
President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
And the commission has approved the end date of no later than the end of November 2023 for the 2023 Ad hoc Commission Organizational Planning Subcommittee with a count of 7-0.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 11A, Emergency Services Manager Projects, Programs, and Events. Emergency Services Manager Victoria Beebe and Project Specialist Corey Beebe will please provide us a report this month.
Thank you. Good evening, President Spreen, Vice President Sherlock, Commission, staff, and public. Tonight, I have some exciting things to share with you. To kick off the Emergency Manager's report, Project Specialist Beebe will now present an update on the progress of the Defensible Space Model. Project Specialist Beebe, please present your update.
Alrighty. Thank you, commissioners and staff. I would like to update you on the second phase of the Defensible Space Model project. As you may recall from the last commission meeting, I introduced 3 phases of design for the model. Next slide, please. The first phase being creating a 3D model draft, which is this slide. The model is drafted to be 4 feet wide by 2 feet long and will consist of recommendations of district staff to include many magnetic miniaturized flora. Sorry, there's a cat in the way. And landscaping and infrastructure to display the appropriate zoning and defensible space recommendations for the residents of Los Altos Hills. The model will also feature 3 distinct hill sizes. Next slide, please. Will feature 3 distinct hill sizes to accurately reflect the geography of the many different homes and land present in Los Altos Hills and will be magnetically attached to the base of the model. Currently, we're in phase 2 of the project, which consists of acquiring the base materials and accompanying parts, which is also outlined in the next 2 slides, or in this slide. And yeah, we'll have the small and flat hills, short, medium hills, and steep, large hills with the flora and fauna to move around to where people can see everything that they need to do. In conclusion, I would like to thank you all, commissioners and staff, for the opportunity to create this model to better educate the community on defensible space hardening for wildfire.
Thank you, Project Specialist Beebe. And just to point out, he has hand-drawn all of these models. Let's move on to the inclement weather report. I know that General Manager Logan already sort of gave you a little bit of an update. Obviously, we've all been through the hot weekends. You're aware of the sort of 4 to 5 day forecast we had. As General Manager Logan pointed out, when we have these inclement weather, it does trigger some internal processes that she alluded to earlier. I won't repeat the information, but I'd also like to point out that the PG&E data portal has now been open for agencies. And as an agency, an allied agency for the county, we do have access to that data portal. What that's going to provide for us is information that you can't get on the public outage map portal. I'm hoping to utilize that at our next inclement weather event, but it will allow us also to share some map layering with our ArcGIS system through Esri. So it's going to have a lot of benefit for us to be able to really see some in-depth information that we can't get going through a public portal. We also have been preparing for our Be Ready, Be Prepared class that I think I reported on the last time that I was here at the commission meeting. We are currently creating the postcard that's going to go out. We have found that engaging with the postcard to go to these classes has been very, very successful. And we decided we wanted to focus more on wildfire for our next one. And as a result, our communications team has been hard at work making sure that we have everything that we need for this event. Also, we've been working on some new Firewise collateral with the help of district staff Andrea Constantine, staff member Hendricks, and CE RRM Gluin. we have been able to get some engaging and relevant material in our new Firewise program. So in this slide, you can see we have some Firewise door hangers. I think actually Commissioner Basigi had brought up the idea of engagement in the neighborhood and how to leave something if they can't get a hold of somebody. So thank you for those great ideas. We were able to implement them and create a door hanger. Captain Gloon is going to be showing you the actual physical door hanger in her report. We also have a recruitment postcard for Saddle Mountain that they're using to engage more of the residents in Saddle Mountain to be joining the Firewise program. And then we also updated a general flyer that we're going to use at events for just general recruitment. On top of doing our events to educate the public, we also have our social media platforms that we use to engage the public in emergency preparedness. Here are some of the examples of some of the things that we've sent out. We're always trying to get people to sign up for our newsletter, and I can say that we had, I believe, about 80 new people from our Be Ready, Be Prepared classes that signed up to get more information from the district through our newsletter. So those are also ways that we're able to continuing this emergency preparedness and education. So CERT was pretty busy this month. We started off in June with a CPR AED day. We had a couple of teen certs and some certs come and get their 2-year certification. Thanks to Santa Clara County Fire for helping host this great training. Jennifer Sanoa, who is the community risk specialist too, and I collaborated to provide this training, and it was very greatly received by all. You can see some of our spectacular certs there doing some compressions on the mannequins. We also had our 4th of July CERT coverage of the parade for the town. As you can see in this lower left-hand corner, we have new participants in terms of horses in the parade. So there was some extra talk when we were doing our planning just to make sure that we knew that our area of expertise was not in horses, but we would be able to provide situational awareness should there be any issues. As you can see there, our objectives that we have are pretty fluid with the rest of the objectives we normally have for these kind of events. We had 11 LH certs, we had 1 LA cert, and 2 teen certs show up to cover 7 different stations. I can happily report no incidents occurred during the parade. Now I'd like to bring up the Teen Cert Board. They'd like to present their 2023-2024 strategic goals. We're going to start with Incident Commander Anthony presenting the first strategic goal slide.
Good evening, Commission. So for our first goal, something we noticed kind of at school was there was a lack of kind of preparedness within teachers, students, and kind of just the general administration. So one thing that our board decided to do was this summer we decided to kick off a program trying to incorporate ourselves within kind of drills, disasters, and preparedness situations. So that includes earthquakes, fires, and possibly active shooters. So our group, we started to quickly formulate plans and design our own emergency action plan, which we are this Friday actually going to speak with administrations. We are going to speak with the emergency coordinator. We have gotten luckily 6 very dedicated people who are wanting to act as the emergency team, who will work alongside staff member during disasters. We are currently talking with Victoria about actually purchasing equipment, medical triage and communication equipment, so we can help support the school, because last year we shadowed the school when they had a disaster earthquake drill, and we noticed that there was a lack in triage training, and there was also a lack of medical training. So our goal right now is currently just talking with the school, trying to get permission about storing the medical equipment on campus and also getting us integrated. And I'll have Maggie now talk about our club at Los Altos High School.
So our next goal is basically just to establish a bigger presence in the school district and our school by making a Teen Cert Club. As Anthony said before, we don't really have that much of an emergency preparedness community. So in the next school year, we're going to charter a club. And once a week, we're going to hold meetings, and we're going to try in these meetings to actively recruit people from our school to also join and learn more about emergency preparedness. And we're going to talk about the CERT curriculum through the University of Utah platform. And we also want to establish a new website. Currently, we have a website on Google Sites, but it's not very, I think it's not very accessible. It's not very easy to edit. And so I'm working with Victoria to move it to WordPress and possibly buy a domain to make it more accessible to everyone, make it more professional looking. And we also want to explore the option of using a social media presence. We want to try to make TikToks about just certain things, and so teens in our community will know what we're doing, because that's a very good way to get with the teens these days. And next is Kevin.
So our final goal is to try to continue recruiting and training certs in areas all around the county. Our aim is to try to spread awareness throughout the county. And for example, we have on our board member a student from Saratoga High School. And hopefully through students like those, we can help, through them, we can help their schools be more aware about disaster preparedness. We also want to apply for the Stop the Bleed scholarship in 2024. This is in line with the content creation that was just mentioned. And through these, if we get the scholarship, through these resources, we can help not only inform students at high schools, but also the community in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Teen Cert Board. You guys can go if you'd like. I apologize.
Oh, they're leaving?
Yeah,
before
don't
the-
grab a cookie on your way out.
I just want to, and before you do it,
Coffee.
thank you very much for that report. That is so exciting, I got to tell you. And I hope that and what I take away from it is if there are any resources you guys need, I'm sure I will certainly be one of the voices making sure you get what you need. And I'm just so excited to see you taking a step to really lead at the schools. You know, I have kids, a son at Los Altos High, and I've had several other kids go through it. So to see you guys stepping forward and leading there is just really exciting. And in terms of website, I don't know if we can talk about how we can use our existing infrastructure to help create a separate website for you guys, but that's just really exciting. Thank you for being here and spending all this time waiting for the report, because I'm really excited by it.
Thank you for those kind words. I do want to definitely acknowledge them for their dedication. This is a new board with a new incident commander, and they have already done, I would say, the work of a year in a couple months, and they're very motivated. They kind of casually mentioned, but they did put together their own emergency operation plan, unbeknownst to me. So I'm very much looking forward to talking with them on Friday with the administration. So thank you guys again for everything. Next slide here. So I've been a little busy also going to conferences. I know I had mentioned the National CERT Conference, but we have commenced that conference. The planning for the planning team, which I was asked to be a part of, started in January of 23, and it commenced on July 1st. I decided to look at this adventure as an incident exercise for me in disaster management. So I looked at some of those capabilities that I exercised. You can see them on these slides. I created a command center with communication capabilities through GMRS radio. I did daily briefings. I took the hotel and put it into different zones, and it took incidents within those zones and prioritized them. So I really followed what I would look at the situation if we ever had an after disaster event. I was in charge of over 420 volunteers and staff throughout that week, and every day I had between 50 and 60 volunteers that checked in with me between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. at night. Yes, I had lots of naps after the conference was over. So the training accomplished, I was able to actually get a updated certificate for Teen Cert Train the Trainer Annex. Also, the district provided 2 scholarships to 2 of our CERT volunteers. So Mr. Dave Stewart was able to get his CERT Program Manager certificate, and we had one of our brand new CERTs take the CERT Train the Trainer class, Katie Cervente, and she's also a doctor. So I'm very excited to be able to utilize them when it comes to helping plan the CERT program. And then also when we go to train our teen CERTs and Los Altos Hills residents. I also went to the Esri GIS conference in San Diego. I'm sure you're aware that we utilize the Esri platform for ArcGIS. The district staff utilize this platform to project plan, create usable operational maps, and share layers between allied agencies. I focused on the public safety area within the conference to learn of the new and upcoming emergency management tools that the Esri platform provides. I was able to also connect with our Esri representative and gain some insight on the learning tools that district staff can utilize that's provided within our Esri license. So I'm hoping that part of our planning process for the next 5 years is to work with Esri on being able to help us guide our digital capabilities within our jurisdiction as well as regionalize and be able to allow our staff to learn the things that they would like to learn within the Esri platform that will help affect their jobs in a positive way. That is the end of my report, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay, let's see. Thank you very much. Any other commission comments on that? Always a very full report and so much stuff going on. Thank you so much. Okay, we will move forward then. Any public comments on this? Great, thank you. Moving on to item 11B, Community Education and Risk Reduction Manager Events. That will be Community Education and Risk Reduction Manager Gluen, please providing us a report.
Good evening, commissioners. Corey has slides for me. Tonight, wanted to give you a little update on most of my activities have been focused and concentrated around Firewise. Again, just to give you the base ideas, we're using Zone Haven as our geographical outline for the areas as a big group. It is up to the individual Firewise communities to pick their homes participation-wise and their own boundaries, but we're trying to keep that within a Zone Haven zone so that we have a little bit of an organizational overlying map. One of the tools that Victoria had mentioned that we have supplemented, and this is mostly at this point for our Saddle Mountain to utilize in their 1-year goals. One of their big 1-year goals was recruitment. And again, you don't always get people home, or you might have to hang something on a gate or, someplace not inside the mailbox. But the nice component of this, it is a door hanger. It's two-sided. It has an envelope incorporated in, lots of information on it. They can put their own letter inside. We gave them also samples of the Firewise flyer. It has a place for them to put their neighborhood contact there, as you can see up on that slide. And again, it's just a nice collateral piece of helpful use tool for them to utilize. In addition to the Saddle Mountain recruitment goals, Victoria helped us get produced a postcard, and you have a sample of that on your desk. This was mailed to all the residents in LAH 005 Zone Haven, which is the Saddle Mountain Firewise. So that's just some collateral that we have for a part of the recruitment and the renewal process that they're in, having already been recognized last year. Next slide, please. So again, just to give you an update, I kind of updated the amount of zones. We have one zone, as you can see in there, that's at the bottom middle right corner. It's SCC EO1. That's the unincorporated area in kind of the Loyola area. We're going to see about if that's going to get name changed to LAH because it is our area. So that's just kind of a little anomaly. The other one is way off, and it's the Los Trancos. So that's that you don't see that in this picture. And again, that's a picture to your left of the Firewise booklet that's available in print and virtually on the website. Again, these arrows that are colored are representing one red that's already done. That's the Saddle Mountain. The greens are in a very active process. They've organized the steering committee and their various phases I'll show in the next slide. And then the yellows, we actually have a couple of yellows inside zone 31. One that has had an initial meeting, and another one has a meeting set up for September. Those two meetings were in conjunction with the Neighborhood Watch and the sheriff deputy. So those are arranged by the town. And so we hope to get a little bit more feedback from them to get started. They are not actually organizing yet, and I'll show you that in the next slide. Corey, can I see that slide? So just to give you a little bit of what the process is, there's a couple pictures again of some of the meetings. We have, again, Saddle Mountain is a recognized zone, and I've given you the Zone Haven zone references there. The 4 in process, I asked them to choose their own name. When you look at Firewise, when you look at Zone Haven, there's often a name that's associated with that, kind of a common area. Fremont Hills was initially La Cresta Drive, was the main street. So that was changed to be known as Fremont Hills Firewise. So they've established a steering committee. They've obviously named their Firewise. They've opened up their portal and they're arranging for their educational day. That's one of the requirements. They'll have to provide a template to their homes. And remember, that's 8 homes initially. They'll provide a template for self-assessment, which feeds very well into weed abatement that we were talking about earlier this evening. So they do a very similar self-assessment of their own property as far as vegetation and home hardening. So that's kind of the phase. The other one's Loma Woods. That's a combination of Loma Alta and Summit Woods, which is in Zone 14 of Zone Haven. Bird Lane, that's actually Lisa Smith is on that steering committee also. They still need to get put together a name, and they're just starting to get into the portal and things like that. Barley Hill is currently named themselves Zone Haven 33, which is okay, but I'm kind of recommending that people get a little more personalized and pick something for their area, because you kind of know, oh yeah, that's kind of where I live. Where you say Zone Haven, people go, and what's a Zone Haven? Obviously, the outreach is happening on that, but we're not, we're not locked in. It's kind of impersonal. It's important in an evacuation and messaging, but it's kind of impersonal when we're trying to get community and grassroots building. We've had meetings with other places other neighborhoods that haven't really established their steering committee. So we'll do follow-up with those. Green Hills Court, they're in Zone Haven 11. I have had a meeting off of Eucalyptus, and that was in 31. I also have a future September meeting in Zone Haven 31. And then we have new meetings coming up August 4th and 13th. And then we'll do some kind of recruiting from some past events that we've done for training. So that's about what I have right now. If you have any questions.
Any commissioner questions, comments? No, thank you very much.
Cool, thank you.
All right, any public comments on that? Seeing none, we move on to item 11C, which is the integrated hazardous fuel reduction operations. That'll be technical analyst project manager Cronin and operations project manager Russell providing us a report.
Go. All right, we have a few topics here. Again, thank you again. So as we reported last meeting, we have completed page mill. So here are the final numbers are now in. The report will be published hopefully by Friday. But I have for you the statistics here. If you remember, page mill was a maintenance project, and we went from Arastradero Road, I'll call it north. It's the part that goes up into Palo Alto, up to the edge of the district, which happens to end at that address there on Page Mill Road. So we did the entire length of that. There's a pretty good portion there once we get up by near the park, Foothills Park, that becomes Palo Alto on the west side of the roadway there. Total of, let's see, this was a maintenance project from a 2020 evacuation route hardening project. We did 5.64 miles. So on average, we covered almost a mile a day. It went very quickly. We had a very good crew. We had 2 crews, 10 people working. And I'm really pleased about that. As we mentioned last time, safety was really the biggest concern out there. And I'm glad we got it done in 6 days and got off the road. By telemetry or aerometrics measurements, we covered 13.68 acres. We had an average then of 2.28 acres per day. So we covered a fair amount of area, but as we'll see in our next slide, if you will, the amount of volume isn't that large. So 6,400 cubic feet, and that's cubic yards. Remember, it was treated in 2020. So the bigger items were taken out. We did have one pretty good opportunity to affect a grove of eucalyptus. So we did spend an entire day on this one spot which then affects the numbers of how fast you go and how much distance you cover. But it was very important. And so the volume may not be that large. If you look down, the bottom chart, again, is from Airmetrics, so measurements using drone technology. You'll see that the low vegetation, which is the grasses and the really flashy fuels, we were able to decrease the coverage of lower vegetation by 18%, and the volume, again, almost, it is identical, of 18%. The medium range vegetation, kind of the brush, that was decreased in the amount of area by almost 4%, and likewise volume 5. And then pleasingly, because we want to create this shaded fuel break, the higher vegetation shouldn't really disappear. In fact, it's increased. So now the taller vegetation represents a larger portion by coverage and certainly by volume of what fuel is out there. So the trees that provide the shade, they're a bigger percentage now. The grasses are definitely cut down and the brush is minimized. All right, next slide there. All right, so I promised you that eucalyptus grove. If you look on the left, the top is before and the bottom is after. So you'll see that, okay, now I can see the trunks of those trees are not all the way down to the ground. It's a small picture, so you can't see it there, but if the pictures are available, you'll see that also all that duff and the peelings from the bark peelings that come off the trunks has all been cleared up underneath. So there's no area of transmission to get up into that tree. And if you're familiar with that, it's pretty obvious. You come up Page Mill Road, you make that first kind of left-hand bend after Rastradero, and there it is on the right-hand side. There's a kind of a pull-out area. If a car's going to be on fire, that's where it's going to pull in, and it's not going to get into those trees. So that's pretty important. On the right-hand side is kind of a close-up of a particular one. You'll see those trees reaching up through the underbrush there, the fore tree. A lot of that was cut back, and now you can even see the fence line. You can see in that picture that the duff is gone and the tree is greatly limbed up. Again, it's a maintenance project, not really quite as exciting, but as you drive up the rest of Page Mill, as you come around the corners, you have a lot more improved visibility. One of the things that we did focus on, and because it is a town ordinance, is about corners and visibility at approachment to intersections. It states that if there's an interesting measurement, but basically the corners of vegetation should be reduced. It shouldn't grow up above 3 feet or so you can still see over the bush. It applies to fences and things like that. That's why it's weird. It's in that ordinance of fences. But brush needs to be cleared up, and then the trees need to be limbed up to about 13.6 or 14 feet, which is about the same as our reduction zones for houses as well. So it's nice and consistent. We did that on a number of intersections, and I just really feel it's very impressive. There's one particular, I'm going to get it wrong. It's just past Moon. As you pull up, if you envision the hood of your car getting to the roadway, you couldn't see up that road. And it's a downhill slope right there. And I got to nudge out to get a look, and there comes that cyclist. That would be a bad day. Now that corner is nice and trimmed up. We didn't just denude the area. We limbed up the trees quite nicely. And I can get my nose to the edge, and I can see up that roadway. And it really improved the safety. So I think that was the biggest. No, it's a two-name. No, it escapes me. Sorry about that. By Moon Lane. So great improvement. So that was a big thing with this one. All right. Next, no rest for the weary. We are right into our next evacuation route. I'll be the first one to point out my mistake on my slide at the very bottom. It's not July 9th. It'll be next month. It'll be August. So here we are. Mora Ravensbury. You can see in the map on the top there. We're going to do Mora from Mid-Penn open space down to close to the freeway or the frontage road there, and then likewise with Ravensbury. We're going to end up doing 3.2 miles of shoulder. It should be pretty easy and a good one to bang out. There's 79 properties involved. So far, we've only received about 3 or so. I did meet with one person in person and went over their concerns about what we're going to do. We have one tree that is damaged and deranged, and we're going to take that one out. We have our traffic plan. We have our Los Altos Hills permit. Our county roads permit is in. We're going to be conducting citizens outreach. We've done some, and we're going to do more tomorrow and Friday. We're ready then to go for the RFP and get the contractor bids and have them first have them do a site visit and then get their bids and do a selection for a contractor for that, as well as for the traffic control. 2 weeks before we start, we're going to do our media release, and I'll put those signs out again. And we intend to start on August 9th. Okay. All right. With that, may I introduce?
Actually, kind of a question, a comment on that.
Yes.
I'm just in thinking of the Mora Drive, that area is, as opposed to like Pageville and others, has sort of houses right up to the road. I imagine there's more sensitivity from the residents about what's going to be hit or not hit. So it just makes it a little different than before.
Yes, and that's exactly the phone call and visit I had last week. It is a completely residential area, so we won't have a lot of through traffic, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very narrow road, so it will take a fair amount of traffic control with that. And yes, the fence lines are right there. We can treat up to the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the properties are pretty well maintained. There are a handful that we want to get in there and do some work. We have the right with the easement to go a certain depth, depending upon where it is. It's at least 15 feet. And then with their ROE, we can treat further. But we will be cooperative with them on what they want to have treated.
Great.
As long as we can reduce some fuel along the roadway, the limbs are pretty low, and they're within our range of 13 and a half feet, or 14 feet actually, because the engines are 13.6. So we want to be able to get fire engines in there. So I think we'll be sensitive to their needs. We have certain authorities, but there's no need really to push it beyond.
And I hope some more will respond to you so they can hear that and understand that this is going to be a very sensitive project. Commissioner, yeah.
A quick question. Will it ever extend down towards the Loyola Bridge? Like where there's the five streets all intersect, Arbor, Terrace, Mora. Will that area ever be worked on, or is that too?
Yeah, the good news is I believe we've written the CEQA for that to include those areas. So we can include those in upcoming projects. Yeah, thank you. Although the citizens down there do a really good job of clearing their yards, and they're very active in our chipping program.
Great, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. With that.
That the octopus.
Yeah.
That intersection. Good evening, commissioners, staff, and public. It is my pleasure to provide another update on the HIZ assessment and rebate program this evening. And I'd like to start by providing a brief review of the program with some bullet points based on what we talked about last month. So as you recall, the program, we've had the HIZ assessment, which addresses home hardening and defensible space for our residents. It's available to everybody, and that still is available to everybody. In conjunction with the Fire Safe Council, we are providing those to all residents. To increase incentive for our residents, we also added a rebate program, which we rolled out to the San Antonio Hills residents. And currently we've been monitoring that program to assess interest and to make sure, basically quality control. We just want to make sure that we are able to meet the demand and the needs. So we are meeting with the Fire Safe Council staff, and I have been meeting with them on basically every other week currently to get an update, see how it's going, see how they're handling that workload. So with that, we sent out the 1,100 postcards last month. That hit probably middle of the month. And I gave 4 rebate registrations were in progress at the last meeting. So I wanted to give you an update where we stand today. If I could go to the next slide, please. We currently have 26 requests. 9 of those are rebate eligible. So they are specifically those residents that live in that San Antonio Hills neighborhood. 10 are Firewise. So Captain Gluhan has really been talking this up. And like I mentioned last meeting, this really dovetails beautifully with the FireWise program and their needs. And the folks that were here tonight, I reached out to them personally and really reiterated that this is a program that can help them. That the one resident that was saying, I just want to understand. I really want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. That's exactly what this is here for. And then 7 other assessments were put in, so 26 in total. Currently, as I mentioned, it is we are still assessing the program, and we hope to expand it soon. I will provide an update once we do that. Thank you. And that is the end of my report. Any questions?
No, any commissioner comments? Nope, great, thank you very much.
Excuse me, sorry. One other addition, I did add a sample report that's in the packet, so you can see that at your convenience, and the public can see that as well.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, both of you. Appreciate the reports. No discussion here. Any public comments on these items? Seeing none. Thank you. We'll move on to item 11D, which is the Integrated Hazardous Fuel Reduction Programs Planning and Grants. And this will be Programs Planning and Grants Manager Woods providing us a report.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. As Ryan mentioned, we just keep rolling along on our projects. This is the next project that we have in plans, and it's the Magdalena Summerhill Roads, which you can see connects to in the lower half of the map to the Ravensbury Mora, and will run under the freeway and parallel to the freeway up Summerhill. In the event that you couldn't get onto the freeway right here at this set of clover leaves, it'll give you a way to get up to the next freeway entrance. So we provide a lot of connectivity. As you've heard in past reports, Midpin has worked on their area that connects Ravensbury and Mora. So we have connectivity to one of our regional partners. It's a secondary evacuation route. It also connects to our future project along I-280, which you see in the long, thin orange circle. So even though we're paused waiting for the grants, we are taking care of the adjacent satellite areas so that if we hear about our FEMA grant soon, October-ish, hopefully, we will have already prepped areas that will touch that project. So this one's in the still in the planning department, if you will. We're working on the CEQA permits and scheduling and timeline for this. So, and the other thing I'd like to mention about this area is this was one of the areas of concern that came up in our March CWPP meetings when we had the maps, and we were taking input from the public on which areas and which projects they would like to see included in our annex update. So happy to be able to satisfy the concerns of our residents as well. Next slide. Okay, so that one stands alone. We're now on to the next agenda item. So we can back up and take questions. I'm sorry, I didn't realize these were just one slide each, these agenda items. What do you have? Is there anything on the coming project, or shall we move to CWPP?
I can see no comment, so we can move forward. Yep.
Okay. We have our CWPP slide back, Corey.
There you go.
Thank you so much. The public comment period for the county-wide document ended on July 2nd. So we discussed last meeting how that was just the county-wide document. It's almost 300 pages. And they received quite a few comments from different areas in the county. That site is now taken down. You can't access it, and they will put together all the comments, and there'll be a public rollout on August 30th at Los Gatos Lodge for anyone that wants to attend in person. And there's also a Zoom option for that one. Then what happens after that is the project tracker gets added to the story map. The project tracker, I think, is the thing that has the most public interest, especially for the input our residents have given us. That actually is going to show past and present and future projects and how they connect across the county. And then finally, the entire countywide document goes to the Board of Supervisors. And this time we've got indications that they will be accepting that and supporting that on the countywide basis. And that was one of the steps that never was completed in 2016. So we're really looking forward to that happening this time around. Moving on to our local annex update, DUDEC has just returned the initial draft portion to us of the modeling and the text and the things that were in the April update. So Paige and I, as your CWPP team, we've just started to dive into that and review that document for accuracy, updates, vetting the information, and those types of things. And the next thing we'll do is reach out to our full district staff to do an internal review of the draft and make any changes and feedback we need to the consultants. And then we'll set up public outreach and a public comment period for our annex. And that, I believe, is the end of this report.
Great, thank you. Any discussion from the commission? Seeing none, any public comments? There you go. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We move on to item 12A, personnel organizational report.
Oh, there is public comment.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to just comment on the CWPP. First, I'd like to say that the notice and duration that the public is provided opportunity input on a 300-page report was insufficient, in my opinion, inadequate. They provided a total of 2 weeks for the public to respond to a 300 plus, actually, I think with the appendix, it's even more than that, and at the same time, the LAHCFD report was being published at exactly the same time. So I think that is really inadequate time for the public to respond. I did ask some questions, which I never got any response to. So the Fire Safe Council is not responding to the questions that are being submitted by the public. And then the last thing is that they actually have taken down the draft report. I don't understand why they would take down the draft report before the final opportunity for the public to comment in August. So not only was there insufficient time to comment during the comment period, but now they removed the draft report so that you can't even look at it and prepare for the meeting in August. So if there's anything the district can do to get the draft report put back up so the public has a proper opportunity to respond to that, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. Thank you for pointing that out.
And we have another public comment from Amanda Brenner-Cannon.
Okay.
It's less of a public comment and more of a response to the previous comment.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, Alan, Amanda Brenner-Cannon here with the Fire Safe Council. I am more than happy to have a conversation with you, of course. And in terms of having that draft report accessible, we are happy to do that. And also just a reminder that the approach that we're taking with this CWPP process is one where we are trying to allow for public comments to be how to say this, but not having things to be so open and closed and shut. So we do welcome your feedback and welcome you to be a continued part of the conversation. As far as not responding to some of the public comment, I do apologize if you have submitted something and we didn't address it. I'm here to listen to you and address those comments. And it's been a very fast project and fast process. So yeah, I'm happy to connect with you. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate your responding and replying right away. Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to item 12. This is strategic planning consultant Scott providing us a report.
Great, thank you. I have just a few quick slides for this item to give you some context. And also there's a nexus between this item and the previous agenda item 10 on the planning meeting coming up. Okay, so I'll just start talking. And the first slide is really just to start at the beginning again with the 3 pillars of the district, which inform what we do. And those pillars will be familiar. There's the 2023 to 27 strategic plan and the current fiscal year budget document and the community wildfire protection plan, which we were just discussing and is in revision. All 3 of those documents are on the website for anybody to review, but those 3 documents really inform our efforts as we develop the work plan and move forward. Thanks, Corey. So the next slide. This shows 2 different org charts. I think you've seen these before. The one on the left is the previous fiscal year, 22-23 org chart. And then the one on the right is the org chart that has been resourced and approved in this current fiscal year budget. And as a result of the growth in the number and scale of projects and programs, you will see some highlight yellow spots, and those are vacant positions that have been added in this fiscal year's budget. And the district runs pretty lean without a lot of redundancy. And that gives us the opportunity, certainly in the upcoming planning meeting, to look for opportunities for cross-training. So that will be one effort. And in addition to the positions that you see here on the org chart, consultants and vendors are used by the district to provide specialized knowledge that doesn't make sense to maintain on staff. Examples would be engineering and human resources. And that really gets us to the next slide, which is the purpose for agenda item 12. And this item is about extending and improving additional resources needed to deliver on the new work plan items. So again, in reference to your agenda, item 12B, the second bullet recommends engaging its personnel, which is a deeply experienced HR group with a prior relationship to the district who can design and build infrastructure needed to retain employees. And in the planning session, one of the expected outcomes is to identify best practices, and they can help develop the SOPs for those best practices and put training and other things in place. Next, item C and D, we have an extension of 2 individuals who are critical to the district's daily financial operations, short and long-term financial strategies, and budget planning. And lastly, items 12E and F are recommendations for 2 new hires who will provide additional knowledge and skills to support the work plan. So this item is not just about hiring, but retaining and supporting employees and providing the right supplemental technical abilities. And these are key to meeting the goals in fiscal year 23-24 and onward. And then the last slide, Corey. So next steps are to consider tonight these additional resources and then as approved onboard them. Next is the organizational planning session. And finally, a follow-up report will be agendized for the next commission meeting. So with that, that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you. And any discussion on that? Because I guess we're going to hit all these issues coming up. I assume there's any public comment on that? Expecting none. Great. Let's move on to item 12B. Now we'll get to the individual details. This is approving the professional service agreement with its personnel, which is kind of a confusingly named company. Let's see. To approve that for HR consulting services. General Manager Logan, you want to present this in as a detail item?
Yes, thank you, President Spreen. Here we are in July, and just a few weeks into the FY 23-24 budget year, and we're already making great strides with implementing of personnel budget allocations and related strategic plan goals. Before you tonight are recommended actions to hire two key positions, field manager and general analyst. Recommendation to approve an agreement to hire a finance manager based on the exceptional contributions of the employee, Russell J. Morreale, while serving as the district's temporary budget manager, and a recommendation to approve the extension of the district clerk, Corey Vargas's employment agreement. And these positions went through the Board of Supervisors and Commission budget adoption process, and descriptions for these positions are included in the approved budget narrative. The positions align with the goals and deliverables for building district infrastructure and sustainability. And these are excellent, skillful, and qualified persons recommended to become part of the district team. I will read the employment highlights for each of the items below.
Just a question here. I think you've moved to item 12C when we're
well, I'm going to.
With its personnel, I'm just confused because.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just then move to the next.
Okay, just make sure.
That's okay. Thank you. The first item, thank you for that entree. The first item recommended for approval, item 12B, is to retain an HR consulting service to assist with development of the new employee onboarding program, development of standard operating procedures in HR, and development of proposals for employee benefits and district staff. Its personnel was retained as an HR consultant a few years ago to help us with recruitment and hiring of an operations manager and provides excellent HR services. Compensation for its personnel, HR consulting services shall not exceed $8,500 for the period of July 18th of 23 through January 18th of 24. So I recommend approval of the item 12B, and thank you. So I wanted to kind of set up and then go to the personnel.
Okay.
So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Are any questions from Commission on this? Seeing none, I'm going to try and move through these pretty quickly. I assume everyone will stop me if you need to. So I'm going to entertain a motion. We need a motion and a second.
So moved, Commissioner Tonka.
Tonka
Second.
and McDonald seconds. Great. Any other discussion? No, any public comment? Seeing none, let's take a roll call.
Okay, President Spreen.
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock.
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi.
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Now moving on to item 12C. Now remember, this was amended under agenda item 4 to now read as approve position description and authorize execution of an at-will employment agreement between the district and Russell J. Morreale for the position of a part-time finance manager effective July 18th, 2023, with annual compensation of $109,200 that has been approved by County Council as to form and legality. General Manager Logan, is there anything else to be presented on that?
Yes, thank you. The proposed employment agreement and position description for finance manager are included in the agenda packet. Government Code Section 54953, subsection C, subsection 3, requires the Commission to orally report a summary of the proposed compensation before taking final action to adopt that compensation. Here, by approving the employment agreement. The proposed compensation is described in the proposed finance manager's employment agreement, including the materials for this agenda item. The proposed at-will part-time exempt employment agreement includes the effective work start date on July 18th, 2023, and compensation start date on July 18th, 2023, and includes the following compensation. 1, wages. Annual compensation for the finance manager in the proposed agreement is $109,200. 2, benefits. Under the proposed agreement, the position will receive certain benefits, including sick leave balances, which carry over from the budget manager to the finance manager position. State law requires sick leave of 24 hours per year is provided, and sick leave can be accrued up to a maximum of 48 hours. No cash out of sick leave on termination. 3, the proposed employment agreement does not provide holiday pay, medical benefits, or retirement benefits. District provides a laptop and supportive equipment necessary to perform the duties, and I recommend approval. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any discussion? Seeing none, I guess we'll take a motion.
Warren moves.
Second.
I have Basiji second, I think I heard. Thank you. Any comments? Seeing none. Any public comments? Seeing none, we will now take a vote.
Okay, President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And if we're not so late, I would say some glowing words about this position, but you have to go unsaid, and I'll say it privately. So thank you for continuing on this with this position. Let's see, item 12D, approving the proposed Fourth Amendment to the District Clerk Employment Agreement. General Manager Logan, please present this one.
Oh, thank you. The proposed Fourth Amendment to the District Clerk Employment Agreement is included in the agenda packet. The proposed Fourth Amendment extends the term of the at-will part-time employment agreement to February 29, 2024, with no changes to compensation or benefits. I recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Any clarifying questions? Expecting none, I will entertain a motion. We're gonna have a lot of motions and seconds going on here, folks. So get those
So
hands
moved,
ready.
Tonka.
We have Tonka as a
Sherlock seconds.
there you go. Sherlock seconds. Any discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, let's take a vote.
Mine's the easiest. President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Great. And thank you so much for everything too as well. It's getting late, so I'm going to keep talking fast. Item 12E is approving the proposed employment agreement and position description for a full-time field manager. General Manager Logan, you may present this one.
Thank you, President Spreen. The proposed field manager employment agreement and position description are included in the agenda packet. California Government Code Section 54953, subsection C, subsection 3, requires the commission to orally report a summary of the proposed compensation before taking final action to adopt the compensation here by approving the employment agreement. The proposed compensation is described in the proposed field manager employment agreement, included in the materials in this agenda item. The proposed at-will, full-time exempt employment agreement includes an effective work start date of August 3rd, 2023, and a compensation start date of August 3rd, 2023, and includes the following compensation. Wages, annual compensation for the field manager in the proposed agreement is $162,240. Benefits, under the proposed agreement, the position will receive certain benefits, including vacation accrual of 15 days per year with a maximum accrual at any one time of 120 hours, which is 15 days. Per state law, sick leave of 24 hours per year is provided. Sick leave can be accrued up to a maximum of 80 hours. No cash out of sick leave on termination. Technology stipend of $120 per pay period. Vehicle stipend of $250 per month, and a uniform allowance up to $2,800 during the first year of employment for specific items identified in the proposed employment contract. The proposed employment agreement does not provide holiday pay, medical benefits, or retirement benefits. District provides laptop and supportive equipment necessary for performance of duties. I recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Turn on your microphone. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Tyson moves approval.
Basiji second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion? Any public comments?
No.
Let's take a vote.
Okay, President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
And with the speed we're moving, I don't want to lose the fact that we have really moved fast at going from improved budget to filling positions and making things happen. And that's just keeping with the spirit of moving forward quickly. And so I don't want these new folks to not recognize how appreciative we are that this group really keeps moving at full speed. So thank you.
I may add my voice to you're enthusiastic about this. And I think the general manager, Logan, is doing an incredible job of attracting and recruiting amazing talent for the organization.
By the way, I looked at this gentleman's background is really exciting. I'm looking forward to meeting him. And I'm sure we will be meeting both new folks in the coming meetings in the coming sessions as they get grounded and assigned to things. And I look forward to really meeting them in person. So thank you for that. Moving on to item 12F, we have one more, the proposed employment agreement and position description for a full-time general analyst.
Thank you, President Spreen. The proposed general analyst employment agreement and position description are included in the agenda packet. California Government Code Section 5459553, subsection C, subsection 3, requires the commission to orally report a summary of the proposed compensation before taking final action to adopt that compensation, here by approving the employment agreement. The proposed compensation is described in the proposed general analyst employment agreement included in the materials in this agenda item. The proposed at-will full-time employment agreement includes an effective start work date of July 24th, 2023, and compensation start date of July 24, 23, and includes the following compensation. Wages. The proposed agreement sets the pay rate at $55 per hour up to 40 hours per week. Benefits. Under the proposed agreement, the position will receive certain benefits, including vacation accrual of 15 days per year with a maximum accrual at one time of 120 hours, which is 15 days. Per state law, sick leave of 24 hours per year as provided. Sick leave can be accrued up to a maximum of 72 hours, no cash out of sick leave on termination. Vehicle stipend of $250 per month, and a uniform allowance of up to $1,500 during the first year of employment for specific items identified in the proposed employment contract. The proposed employment agreement does provide holiday pay, but does not provide medical benefits or retirement benefits. District provides the laptop and supportive equipment necessary to perform the position. I recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Logan. Any clarifying questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Basiji moves that we approve.
You got in there first.
Warren seconds.
Warren second. Thank you. Let's see. Any discussion? Any public comments? Thank you. Let's vote.
All right. President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And not to be lost in all this, I really want to welcome these two new folks to the group. I'm excited to meet them and welcome them. And I don't know if they're listening now, but if not, we really are excited to have you, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you. If I can just summarize real quickly just how far we've come, beginning at the beginning of a fiscal year, to have these two key employees join us to move the budget manager to a finance manager, to continue with our district clerk service. And you think about all this that is occurring to key up for then the August 4th planning and organizational session, which will be all day, getting in tune with the commission as to the ongoing work plans in the strategic plan. You can see how all this is coming together in just a mere couple of weeks. So thank you for the support of the commission for being willing to move quickly forward with us to help us achieve what we need to do.
Well, thank you for moving forward a culture of innovation and action and collaboration, and we're really showing that in every way. Okay, let's move on to item 13A, which is update on the fiscal year 22-23 financial audit process. This will be Finance Manager Morale.
Good evening, President Spreen, Vice President Sherlock, and members of the Commission. The item before you really just provides a brief update on the fiscal year 22-23 financial audit process that is just beginning. It's hard to believe that the audit falls right on the heels of the budget adoption, but such is the life of the accounting cycle. The performance of a financial audit is an annual event, and it's a best practice that supports the overall mission of the district. It's a strong financial stewardship practice, and it furthers organizational sustainability. The prior year financial audit was performed by the independent certified public accounting firm Fector and Company. I'll refer to them as Fector. And the contract was extended through June 30th, 2024. The audit is scheduled to start the week of August 1st. Corey and I are working diligently on that right now. And staff is currently preparing to close the books for the year ended June 30th, 2023. You saw the financials this evening. Again, those are unclosed, but they will be adjusted through the month of August, maybe possibly a little bit into September. We hope to present the financial audit to the commission in September. The September date is a tight timeline, but it is our initial goal. Our fail-safe due date is to present a draft on September 19th to this commission and a final on October 17th. That's our intended timeline for the audit this particular year. The contract with Fector includes an option to test a newly implemented credit card program for the district. We are still in the review process for that, discussion and planning process for that program, so we will not trigger that particular option as of yet this particular year. That said, we did ask Fector to continue to place a strong focus on the auditing of existing credit card programs and transactions, and they will do so. There are no new accounting standards that impact the nature of the audit this year that we can tell. So the project and audit approach will be the same as last year, and the content will follow the same progression. The finance team is considering updating the financial packet to be Professional Association Award eligible. This is a significant task that finance is aiming to take on, or at least we want to make progress towards that this audit season. If we do so, and it's not determined yet when that we'll have the time to do so, but we will give it our best shot. The format changes that can be expected will include multi-year comparisons and long-term trend statistical reporting that's included in the financial report. Such awards can't be expected to be attained in the first year because they essentially go through a first iteration and a review process and a commentary process. We think it'll take 2 to 3 years to achieve it, but it is a best practice that we are definitely aiming for, and we hope to start this particular year. So that concludes my presentation on the audit.
Great. Quick question, and I could be wrong on this. Did we have any issue last year with sort of the feedback speed from our auditors and sort of holding things up? Was there any issue there?
I think in the prior year, we know that the auditors went through a organizational transition, and that is to say you may or may not recall that they actually had a death of a major partner.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That caused them to transition internally quite a bit. There were delays, there's no doubt about it. Having said that, we met as early as 2 weeks ago, actually, Corey and I and Scott German, who's the partner in charge this year. And we have laid out a specific timeline, and they are on board, and we're fully on board to make that work. It is, again, the September is an aggressive schedule, but we believe we'll put that out there. We'll try our best to make September 19th. Our definite is October for delivery, which is well ahead of last year. I think a good month and a half ahead of last year.
Great, thank you very much. Any other comments on that process? Seeing none, let's move. Any public comment on that?
Yes, we have a comment
I think
from
there might
Alan
be.
Epstein.
Okay.
Go ahead, Alan. You're on mute.
Yes, thank you. I like to compliment the financial team on the efforts they're doing and the speed in which they wish to close the books and do the financial statements. As I've mentioned once before, having been familiar with municipal accounting for about 16 years now, the GFOA is really a beauty contest. It doesn't really provide a substantial amount of additional information that's useful to the public that isn't available from the wonderful work that's already been done to date. It is a tremendous additional amount of work for the staff to have to do, and I do find it questionable whether it's worth the additional time and cost associated with it, particularly if you have other more important priorities. So that's my input for you. Take it for what it's worth. Maybe quote best practices, but I can tell you it doesn't improve the accounting. It doesn't check the accuracy of the results. It only has to do with conforming to a format for which the information will be displayed. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you for your comments. We'll now move on to item 13B, which is introducing the website interim improvements.
Yes, good evening again, President Spreen and Commissioners. As we enter the new fiscal year, staff is really excited to place a heightened attention on making the district website the best it can be. Tonight's report presents some initial interim steps for what we think are achievable and immediate improvements in response to public comments, user experiences, and staff observations. We've identified 2 areas of improvements to focus on. The first is optimizing the search engine plugin tools available on our district website to improve document and topical search capabilities. The second is to modify the order, arrangement, and terminology of the site's main navigation menus to be much more clear, simple, and hopefully much more supportive of the core mission of the district. We are assisted in this efforts by CornDev, DBA Watchdog Studio, on the matter of search capabilities. And the communications team, and I'll be working with Victoria on this as well, on the matter of menu navigation improvements. I do want to make a correction in the staff report. I referred to CornDev's DPA in the plural tense. It really should be a singular. It's CornDev DPA Watchdog Studio. On search capabilities, in May of 2023, staff reached out to CornDev for assistance in improving the district's site search engine plugin, and that plugin is called Search WP. We are happy to report that in the past weeks, CornDev has moved ahead and optimized the existing WordPress search engine plugin, and they did so under their existing contract terms. Initial results, I believe, are promising, although staff continues to evaluate the plugin updates. In this regard, Justin CornDev advised me to clarify that the term I use in my staff report, search engine optimization, is probably not the best term to use. He really prefers that we refer to the search engine plugin as where we're going to put our focus and attention. Staff realizes that this search optimization action is only the first step, and will continue to implement improvements in the current system whenever content is updated and changes are made. These include using strong keywords for content, URLs, title pages, subtitles, headings, and tags. This involves reviewing content relevancy often and using metadata fields to their best value, and then optimizing descriptive links wherever we can. On a second improvement area, the communications team has produced some very good suggestions to make site menu changes that are more descriptive and logically arranged and easier to use. Discussions are currently underway to implement these menu changes to improve the overall user experience. These changes will, again, assist in the search engine optimization, we believe, and ultimately help as we entertain the next generation of the district's website. Staff will keep the commission apprised of developments, and I want to thank the communications team in particular for their suggestions, which includes Vice President Sherlock as well, for their keen suggestions on these important site enhancements. Given this discussion tonight, the commission should consider whether staff should report back in the future on a major site upgrade and/or re-engineering of a new site. Tonight's agenda item has no fiscal impact, as all work is being performed under the existing contract and/or being performed by district staff. And that ends my report.
Any discussion? I'm a little thrown by the last sentence about asking about a larger re-architecture, re-engineering of things, but I think today is just as a report of things progressing.
It's basically informational, but we're wondering if the commission would welcome in the future months a future discussion on more major upgrades to the website and our possible redesign of the website.
I guess a lot of that will come from, I appreciate the fact that staff is looking at it so closely now, and if they find that more is needed, I'm certainly more open to hearing that, but I wouldn't be directing that specifically. Again, I don't mean to misinterpret your question there, but.
No,
Okay.
I'd be in the future, be interested to hear proposals for upgrade.
There you go.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
We have public comment from Alan.
I was going to say, any public comment? I imagine there would be one.
Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you. Thank you. As you know, the area of a search engine is very much interest to me. I'll give you just an example. Russ talked about looking at auditing credit card behavior. And so I went to the site and typed in credit card policy, hoping that it would find for me the credit card policy. Well, of course, it doesn't find anything if you type in credit card policy. So it's not that something really complex or involved is necessary. It's simply a basic word search to be able to find the documents that already exist in the district's database. And as you know, part of the audit that the county undertook required the district to digitize all of its records. So the records should be available in digital form. It's an effort of course, using a bot to search all those things and then indexing them all and then making them available so that they can be searched on the website. I think this would help greatly in terms of improving the ability for the public to find documents on the website and participate in the meetings. And I think it'll be very helpful to the commissioners as well. As regards to the improvements that have taken place, well, I did my searches today, and I'm sorry, but I don't know what the consultant did, but I did not see any material improvement in the search capabilities. So my hope is that the commission will set some deadline, a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, for the staff to try and work on improving the search engine for the benefit of the public. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for the comments. Okay, moving on to item 14. Moving on, this commission member reports. This is an opportunity for commissioners to provide reports for any future agenda topics. Are there any comments from commissioners for this? This is always one day we'll have one. Let's see, any public comment on commission member reports?
No.
Didn't expect one. Thank you. We'll move on to item 14B. The next regular commission meeting is August 15th, in person and hybrid, to be held at this location, 26379 Fremont Road, Los Altos Hills, in this town hall council chambers. Let's see, are there any additional comments from commission on that? Any issue about that schedule or location? Any public comments on this scheduled meeting?
None.
Sensing none, we can now move on to item 15. Let's see, adjournment. This concludes the July 18th, 2023 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District. The meeting is adjourned 15 minutes beyond the predicted time from Commissioner Warren at 10:15. Emergency Service Manager Beebe, please stop the recording.